Chapter 778. Yu Qianqiu, who was hiding underground in the distance, did not dare to approach them. These three fellows were able to survive in the cultivation world until now, so they were not to be trifled with. Every move they made had the power to split mountains and split the earth. It was very terrifying, and it was not something he could block with his cultivation. He could only use the earth spell to control the earth to squeeze and trample on these three guys. He was going to torture them half to death first. After discovering that these three guys were desperately trying to escape, Yu Qianqiu was immediately displeased. How could he let them escape so easily? He hadn't finished creating the shock effect yet. In fact, with Yu Qianqiu's current cultivation, although he couldn't compare to those experts at the soul formation final stage, the distance that his chi could spread and the speed at which he could lock onto his target, together with the 5 elements spell, were enough. He probably couldn't find any opponents in the cultivation world. This was also the reason why he dared to provoke Pei Fong and the others. If he really wanted to kill Pei Fong and the others immediately, he wouldn't have needed to act cool and use the gold absolute. He could have just used the absorbing star's great technique to deal with these three guys immediately. The key point was that he wanted to show his power in front of everyone today. He wanted to show them his awesome methods and let them know that he, the torture master of the demon ghost region, was not to be trifled with, and they had better behave themselves in the future. This was called deterrence. It would be best if he could shock them once, twice, and thrice, so that they would tremble with fear and completely give up the idea of going against him. Otherwise, how would he have the energy to deal with them one by one in the future? Speaking of which, he now had the ability to kill Pei Fong and the others. But if Pei Fong and the others escaped, it would be difficult for him to catch up to them with the cultivation of Pei Fong and the others. He had finally trapped the three of them underground. How could he let them escape so easily? No matter what, he had to torture them until they were almost out of breath, and then let them out so that everyone could see his performance. He definitely couldn't let them escape now. Pei Fong and the others, who were bombarding and breaking out of the encirclement, immediately felt that the surrounding earth was wriggling more and more violently, and the resulting pressure was also increasing. The three of them immediately felt a fatal threat, and in panic, they used all their cultivation to break out of the encirclement. Yu Qianqiu immediately realized that it was difficult to trap them. He cursed in his heart. He couldn't play anymore, so he had to kill them. Pei Fong and the other two suddenly felt the pressure around them decrease greatly. Pei Fong immediately shouted, "Go!" The three of them were extremely vigilant. They first launched a series of attacks in all directions, abandoning the threat. Then, they immediately seized the opportunity and launched 6 palms at the top of their heads. Bang! Bang! The earth trembled violently, and a large hole suddenly exploded in the ground. Dirt and rocks flew everywhere and 3 figures quickly flashed out. Everyone was thinking to themselves that they had finally fought. How was the battle going? Suddenly an angry shout came from below. "Don't run! Absorbing Star's great art!" As soon as the 4 words "Absorbing Star's great technique" were uttered, a few people in the crowd had a particularly big reaction. As expected, the 3 silhouettes exploded into 3 clouds of white mist with a bang, and shot back into the deep pit below like 3 flowing clouds and sharp arrows. The 3 silhouettes that rushed out did not stop and rushed straight to the sky. From the pit below, a figure quickly chased after them, and forcefully inserted himself in between the 3. The figure flickered, and Yu Qianqiu quickly took the storage bags from the waists of the 3 people, letting the 3 exhausted corpses fall freely. Perhaps it was because they had been drained of water. The 3 corpses floated down, giving everyone enough time to appreciate them. There was dead silence all around, and everyone revealed a look of disbelief and horror. The 3 corpses were like skeletons, and their original appearance could no longer be seen. However, from their clothes, they could vaguely tell that they were Pei Fong and the other 2 people. Pei Fong's fat body was now as thin as firewood. It was also at this moment that countless divine senses couldn't help but quickly scan the 3 corpses, and immediately withdrew after finding no signs of life. The 3 corpses fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. They were really smashed to pieces. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the wreckage on the ground for a long time, unable to move away. They suddenly felt like a dream. They couldn't believe that Pei Fong, Qi Jiujuan, and Ouyangda, the three masters at the late Huashan stage, died like this. In that instant, it felt as though Yu Qianqiu had forced Pei Fong and the other two to flee. In the end, the three of them still couldn't escape from Yu Qianqiu's murderous hands. With a single move from Yu Qianqiu, the three of them were instantly killed. Too powerful. Nongzhu was the most speechless one. He was a witness to Yu Qianqiu's success in practicing the so-called absorbing stars great technique. At that time, in the embassy of Baiwan in Dayang Kingdom, it was he who gave advice to Bai Changchun, which led to the success of the absorbing stars great technique. He witnessed the power of the absorbing stars great technique for the first time, and it could be said that he was the first person to see the absorbing stars great technique used for the first time. At that time, because Yu Qianqiu didn't know how powerful the absorbing stars great technique was, he begged him to let him try it. At this time, Nongzhu still had a cold sweat on her back when she thought of it. Even Pei Fong and the others couldn't resist it. If she had agreed at that time, wouldn't she have become a dry corpse? Fortunately, she was wise and refused. Nongzhu was the first to look at Yu Qianqiu in the air. She saw that Yu Qianqiu had revealed his true colors, and was quickly checking the things in the 3 storage bags. Nongzhu's expression twitched. As soon as Yu Qianqiu stuffed the 3 storage bags into his chest, his eyes immediately met with Nongzhu's, and the joy on his face immediately became serious. You overestimate yourself. A disdainful snort came from the air. Everyone's eyes were fixed on that direction, and their complicated expressions were full of awe. Yu Qianqiu slowly floated down. The ground below seemed to be preparing for his landing. It surged like waves, swallowing the debris on the ground, and the ruptures that had been blasted out also merged together. A mound of earth tens of meters high instantly rose from the center of Lingfang Valley, steadily supporting him as he fell. Such a scene that was almost like an illusion made all the practitioners think that they had seen a miracle. They were all dumbfounded and looked up at Yu Qianqiu on the top of the mound of earth tens of meters high. Yu Qianqiu was very satisfied with the reaction of the crowd, but not very satisfied. His eyes inadvertently came into contact with the blazing sun in the sky, and his heart moved. The metal elements were quietly released into the sky, and then gradually condensed in the process of falling. Little by little they scattered, and the scene was like a golden flower falling from the sky. Behind him gradually condensed a big golden wheel that was as magnificent as a golden rainbow, and his whole body was faintly glowing with golden light. The big golden wheel was like a rainbow, magnificent and majestic, as if it had fallen from the sky, shining with a dreamy golden light. In the big golden wheel, Yu Qianqiu was high up in the sky, and under the illumination of the sun, his whole body was covered with a layer of hazy golden light, looking extremely holy and holy. The whole Lingfang Valley also seemed solemn in an instant. Such a scene suddenly made everyone think of the transcendence golden body in the secular temple, and it almost made them want to worship it. Everyone told themselves from the bottom of their hearts that this was an illusion. It must be an illusion. But the Yu Qianqiu standing on the mound was so sacred and inviolable, and no one could think of any way to imitate him to such a magical extent. In addition, they already had a sense of awe in their hearts, and subconsciously thought that this might really be a miracle, or an auspicious sign from the heavens when one's cultivation had reached a certain realm. One must know that this was very possible, just like when one's cultivation broke through to the tribulation passing stage, and had to suffer a lightning tribulation. The group of people below were really shocked by this scene, and all of them were speechless with exaggerated expressions. Some people even suspected that this was a strange phenomenon when one's cultivation had reached the realm of ascension. It was very possible that Yu Qianqiu could kill 3 experts at the final stage of Huashan realm by himself. Damn it! Is this considered as creating a god? Yu Qianqiu muttered in his heart, but on the surface, he still looked dignified, quietly enjoying the reverent and slightly pious eyes of the group below. Now he finally understood why those bodhisattvas in the temples who held high positions, but did not do anything, were not afraid of wearing a straight face for a long time. It was because it felt so good to be able to look down on all living beings, be superior, and have people respect you. Now he even thought that it was okay to do more dirty things in the future, as long as he put the image of a bodhisattva on the table. Regardless of the level of cultivation, if there was anyone present who felt that something was wrong, it would be Nongzhu, who knew very well about Yu Qianzhou's pretense. Immortal Crocodile, who was on the hillside, was also looking at Yu Qianzhou dumbfounded. He was speechless. Although he did not know how Yu Qianzhou had created such a magical phenomenon, he was sick of it. He felt that this guy was really shameless and could do anything. Nongzhu looked at the glorious image of Yu Qianzhou, and her expression twitched endlessly. She felt a toothache. She sneered and said, "I didn't expect that killing 3 experts at the final stage of tribulation passing would make you look like a gold plate. How much longer do you want to play? Do you want me to build a temple for you and place you inside to receive incense and worship?" Hearing this, Yu Qianzhou's interest was greatly reduced, and he was no longer in the mood to pretend. He immediately glanced at the people below and said loudly, "Who else doesn't like me? Come at me if you don't like me. I'll still say the same thing. I'll fight you one-on-one at any time." His voice echoed in the valley. Coupled with his transcendence golden body, it made him look even more solemn, sacred and inviolable. He had easily killed Pei Fong, Qi Jiujuan, and Ouyingde, 3 experts at the final stage of soul transformation. Who would dare to provoke him? At this time, in the hearts of the people, he was fully deserving of the title of Torture Master of the Demon Ghost region. This battle had completely established his top position in the cultivation world. Everyone sighed in their hearts. The Demon Ghost region had lasted for a long time, and Yu Qianzhou, the former Torture Master, had once again secured the throne of the world's top expert. Humph! Yu Qianzhou looked around and snorted coldly. He said, "No one answered? Those who are irrelevant, go back immediately. If you're late, don't leave. Stay in Lingfang Valley for the rest of your life." The lords of the various countries looked at each other and immediately flew into the sky like birds and beasts. Since they couldn't afford to provoke him, they would naturally hide. Chapter 779. In the blink of an eye, there were only a few people left in the Lingfang Valley. Yu Qianzhou was high up. Immortal Crocodile was standing on the hillside where Enchantress and Yen Yu had fainted, when Lanfeng was holding Lu Yanqing, who was in a coma, and Nongzhu and Li Duxing were staring at Yu Qianzhou on the top of the mound. Bing Qingzi and Yen Juexing looked gloomy. Others could leave, but they knew they couldn't. Yen Juexing clenched his fists and stared at Yu Qianzhou, gnashing his teeth. "Yu Qianzhou, you've been fooling me." His heart was filled with rage as he spat out each word. He now deeply suspected that Yu Qianzhou was not as unbearable as he had seen him to be. Instead, he had been playing a game of cat and mouse. As long as he jumped up, Yu Qianzhou would come out and slap him. At first, he couldn't figure it out, but then he remembered that Yu Qianzhou already knew that he practiced the demonic book and knew the weakness of the blood escape, but he didn't make it public. It was obvious that he wanted to play with him slowly. This hatred could be said to have no end. Yu Qianzhou was stunned. He didn't know when he had fooled this little devil. While thinking, he put away the big golden wheel and the transcendence golden body behind him. The mound that was tens of meters high quickly melted into the ground, and he also fell with the height of the mound. Before he spoke, someone already couldn't help but want to get even with Yen Juexing. After listening to Wen Lanfeng's narration, Li Duxing suddenly turned back and shouted coldly, "You don't need to know whether I'm fooling you or not. Go to hell." He turned into a shadow and stretched out his claws to attack Yen Juexing. Bing Qingzi blocked it without hesitation. The 2 experts at the late stage of Huashan realm collided with each other again. Shockwaves suddenly rose and exploded. The 2 of them turned into countless afterimages as they quickly fought against each other. Every fierce exchange of blows was shocking to the hearts of the spectators. Everyone watched the battle silently and found that Bing Qingzi seemed to be fighting desperately. It was the first time for those who knew him to see him like this. Perhaps it was because he knew that he had been implicated by Yen Juexing, and several soul formation final stage experts were eyeing him with hostility. It would be very difficult for him to have a good ending today. Thus he decided to go all out. Since it was highly likely that he would not be able to keep his life, then he would protect his reputation. Bang! Both of them retreated violently at the same time. They hadn't even stopped retreating when they turned into afterimages and crazily collided with each other. Darking Palm. It was Bing Qingzi's voice. The temperature around suddenly dropped, and sporadic snowflakes suddenly fell. A wave of palm shadows blew the falling snowflakes and covered Li Duxing, who was shooting over. Humph! Li Duxing snorted and shouted. 1,000 miles of solitude. His gray shadow, like a flowing light, flashed into the palm shadows all over the sky and danced in the air. Suddenly, with a loud bang, the two of them were forced back again. The palm shadows that filled the sky between the two of them slowly disappeared. The scattered snowflakes silently moistened the ground, and the surrounding temperature slowly returned to normal. The Spirit Fragrance Valley was completely silent. Both of them stood still and stared at each other from a distance of nearly 100 meters. Li Duxing looked proud. The claw of his only arm was holding a piece of his chest, which was covered with blood. Bing Qingzi looked at his chest in silence. The blood that gushed out quickly dyed his whole body. The bright red color was extremely dazzling on his white robe. In an instant, the blood that gushed out was forcibly stopped by his profound cultivation. However, there was a big hole on his chest. His beating heart and expanding lungs could be seen clearly. The appearance of his chest was no longer concealed. Nongzhu and Wen Lanfeng looked at each other in dismay. Yu Qianqiu also secretly stuck out his tongue. 1,000 miles of solitude is really powerful. The combination of speed and strength is almost perfect. I'm afraid that few people in the world can rival him with this one move. No wonder it's said that few people can fight with him for more than 10 moves. Moreover, he only has one arm. If he has 2 arms, it must be even more amazing. Sure enough, a madman must have the capital to be arrogant. Hee. Bing Qingzi suddenly smiled with a bleak expression. He shook his head and said, I've long heard that Li Duxing's 1,000 miles of solitude is known for its speed and invincible. Today I see that it really lives up to its reputation. I didn't lose unjustly. Are you being merciful? In fact, Li Duxing could have killed him with one move just now, but for some reason he was merciful. Li Duxing pointed at Yan Juexing with his only arm and said, I want to kill him, not you. Bing Qingzi laughed bitterly and said, You're famous for killing. You've washed thousands of miles with blood. I've never heard of anyone who fought with you surviving. This doesn't seem to be your style, does it? Li Duxing snorted coldly and didn't answer. Wen Lanfeng was probably the only one who knew the reason. When Li Duxing was seriously injured by Bai Changchun and was dying, it was Lu Yanqing who saved him. Lu Yanqing was so kind that she couldn't stand fighting and killing. After saving such a god of killing, Lu Yanqing had repeatedly restrained Li Duxing not to kill indiscriminately. Li Duxing's life was picked up by Lu Yanqing. In order to appreciate her kindness, he respected Lu Yanqing as Miss and obeyed her orders. Thus, it became his first honorable's business to give up killing. Later, Lu Yanqing felt the miserable fate of those individual cultivators in the cultivation world. So she ordered Li Duxing to live in the ghost village to intimidate all the individual cultivators and give them a place to settle down. Bing Qingzi didn't take it seriously when he didn't answer. He turned to Yan Juexing and sighed. I've died once. My life was given by others. From today on, my mission has been completed. I can't help you anymore. After saying that, there was a faint smile on his face, as if he was relieved. Seeing Bing Qingzi's chest dripping with blood, Yan Juexing roared with his eyes wide open. Master, I'll avenge you. A black evil spirit emerged from his body at once. He opened his mouth and spat out 7 red lights, which immediately condensed the black evil spirit into 7 vivid flying snakes with ferocious faces. The scene was extremely weird. Among the people present, only Yu Qianqiu had seen it before. It was the first time for the others to see it. Their eyes flickered. The thing that Li Duxing was holding loosened and fell to the ground. He wasn't in a hurry to fight. He squinted and said, Is this the so-called demonic skill? It's really unique. I'd like to have a taste of it today. Boy, don't hesitate to fight. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows and flashed to the middle of the two. He looked at Li Duxing indifferently and said, "Senior Li, you'd better take a break." Li Duxing snorted coldly without expressing his opinion. He looked at Yan Juexing as if to say, "You have to see who he wants to fight with." "Yu Qianqiu, get out of my way," Yan Juexing roared. "I'll settle the score with you sooner or later." "Are you out of your mind?" Yu Qianqiu looked back at Yan Juexing indifferently and said, "Yan Juexing, it's all because of you that your master ended up like this today. You can't blame others. We all cheat and kill each other in the cultivation circle. Today, you are destined to have no revenge. Don't talk nonsense about revenge. Now it's time to end things between you and me. I'm a man who will do great things. I don't have time to tangle with you." Yan Juexing didn't talk nonsense anymore. He waved his hand and shouted angrily, "Kill!" 7 flying snakes shot over like arrows. Yu Qianqiu raised his palm, and 7 balls of azure flames flew out, just in time to catch the 7 flying snakes that were rushing over. It was the nature of the flying snakes to escape when they met their nemesis. The 7 cyan flames were wriggling violently and changing into various shapes. The 7 cyan flames flew all over Lingfang Valley. The things inside seemed to want to break free. However, ever since Yu Qianqiu started cultivating the Guyuan sword art, even though his cultivation level wasn't high, his divine sense's ability to divide and control things was simply unparalleled in this world. Perhaps even Bai Changchun wouldn't necessarily be stronger than him. If he didn't try, he wouldn't know. Once he tried, he would definitely give others a shock. This was what it meant to not waste a skill that was painstakingly trained. There would be a day when it would be useful. Within the 7 cyan flames, there were anxious hissing sounds coming from the cyan flames. They were anxious to break free from the cyan flames that were their nemesis. However, the cyan flames followed it like a shadow. It flew everywhere and burned its body crazily. It wasn't afraid of how powerful it was. Everything had its vanquisher. With the sharp eyesight of everyone present, anyone could see that the flying snake was a living creature, and the 7 balls of green flames were completely controlled by Yu Qianqiu. Under such circumstances, it was easy to imagine how difficult it was to control the green flames to burn the flying snake. Everyone gasped, and they were shocked in their hearts. What a formidable soul-splitting control technique. Nongzhu and Wen Lanfeng looked at each other, unable to hide the shock in their eyes. Li Duxing's eyes flickered, and a mortal crocodile looked solemn. Facing the entanglement of the flying snakes and the cyan flames, Yu Qianqiu didn't even look at them. He stood there calmly and said indifferently, "Yan Juexing, do you want to fight with me with such little ability?" Yan Juexing's face instantly turned pale. He gritted his teeth and stared at Yu Qianqiu. With such a powerful control skill, he had been hiding his cultivation. He could feel how painful the devilish spirit snakes in the fire were. Under the burning of the cyan flames, the 7 snakes' resistance was sharply declining, and their bodies were shrinking rapidly. If he let it go on, the 7 traces of spirit separated from his primordial spirit would be damaged, and the consequences of the primordial spirit injury would be terrible. Without any hesitation, he quickly performed the magic light sweeping shadow, and rushed over like a flowing light. He waved his fist and shouted angrily, "Devil Fist!" In terms of speed, without teleportation, Yu Qianqiu was definitely not as fast as Yan Juexing's magic light sweeping shadow. However, before his opponent moved, he had already predicted the enemy's movement. His figure flashed into the sky, and the two brushed past each other. Yan Juexing quickly turned around and bounced up in the air, chasing after Yu Qianqiu and punching him. However, as soon as Yu Qianqiu bounced up, he had already turned around and slapped Yan Juexing with his palm. He shouted calmly, absorbing Star's great skill. A cloud of white mist burst out of Yan Juexing's body and was absorbed into Yu Qianqiu's palm like a flowing cloud. At the same time, dense cyan flying swords burst out of Yu Qianqiu's sleeves, directly smashing Yan Juexing's shriveled body into pieces. Chapter 780. Bing Qingzi, who was watching the battle, saw Yan Juexing being blasted into pieces by Yu Qianqiu. His body swayed a little, and he was on the verge of collapse. His pale face instantly became even paler. However, Yu Qianqiu seemed to be afraid that Yin Juexing would come back to life. The green fire-flying swords in his sleeves kept shooting out, chasing after the falling body. In an instant, a large pit was created on the ground by the rapidly shooting flying swords with a crackling sound. Yu Qianqiu jumped to the edge of the pit, without any intention of stopping. The flying swords rose and fell rapidly, bombarding the pit. I was afraid that you wouldn't die. I was afraid that you wouldn't die. Live for this daddy to see again. Live for this daddy to see again. Yu Qianqiu stood by the edge of the pit, and muttered in a seemingly deranged manner, while controlling the countless flying swords with blue flames. Li Duxing, who didn't know what was going on, looked back at Wen Lanfeng in disbelief. He seemed to be asking Yu Qianqiu what kind of hatred he had for Yin Juexing. Yin Juexing had been smashed into pieces, but he still didn't let him go. That was too much. Wen Lanfeng, who was holding Lu Yanqing, was speechless. Immortal Crocodile, who was on the hillside, turned to look at the sky. He really didn't want to see it anymore. He sighed in his heart. What a talent! Nongzhu flashed to Yu Qianqiu's side, and craned her head to look into the pit. Yin Juexing had already been smashed into pieces, and the pit was filled with splashing mud. There was no wreckage at all. Nongzhu asked suspiciously, he should be dead, right? Yu Qianqiu said seriously, it doesn't matter. It's not a bad thing to keep bombarding. This guy's demonic skill is very evil. I've experienced it myself. Hearing this, Nongzhu's face twitched. She looked at the others and found that Bing Qingzi, who had decided not to intervene, seemed to be angry. She coughed and said, Okay. It's almost time. Can you maintain the demeanor of a torturer of the demon ghost region? Okay. Got it. I'll stop immediately. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand, and narrowed his eyes to size them up. He looked like he was determined to exterminate them. As Nongzhu had expected, Bing Qingzi roared crazily, Yu Qianqiu, don't go too far, or you will be punished by heaven. After all, Yin Juexing was his disciple. Seeing someone torturing a corpse like that, he couldn't hold it in anymore. Yu Qianqiu turned back to look at him, his eyebrows raised. Just as he was about to explode in anger, he noticed that the others were looking at him, as if he was a monster. Pursing his lips, he waved his sleeves, and the green flame-flying swords that were shuttling through the pit instantly disappeared into his sleeves. He patted off the soil that had splashed on his palms, and was about to use the earth element to bury the deep pit. However, he frowned and glanced at the pit. He still felt a little uneasy after thinking about it. With a flick of his finger, a green light shot into the deep pit. Nongzhu even stuck her head out to the edge of the pit curiously, wanting to see what he had shot into the pit. Suddenly, with a buzz, a fierce green flame soared into the sky. Nongzhu was so scared that she immediately teleported away. She pulled her hair and shouted, Are you crazy? Yu Qianqiu looked at her with disdain, as if to say, Who asked you to stick your head out there? Then, he waved his hand and pointed at the raging flame, suppressing the fire and concentrating the high temperature in the pit. Even the scorching sun in the sky couldn't take away the radiance of the resplendent azure light. Everyone was speechless as they looked at the azure flames burning in the pit. They couldn't hide the disdain in their eyes as they looked at Yu Qianqiu. Hiss! Suddenly, a few intense and sharp hisses were heard in the Lingfang Valley. It was as if metal was rubbing against each other, making everyone's hair stand on end. They quickly looked towards the source of the sound, and saw that the 7 balls of green flame had stopped dancing. Obviously, the flying snakes inside had been completely refined. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand, and the 7 balls of green flame went into his sleeve. At this time, he was also slightly relieved. Just as he was about to retract the raging green flame in the pit, the fire in the pit suddenly soared into the sky. Everyone thought that Yu Qianqiu was going to play some tricks again, but they saw Yu Qianqiu waving his arms towards the pit. His face was red, and the veins on his neck were bulging, as if he was forcibly controlling the green flame to suppress something. Nongzhu frowned. She was the first to notice that something was wrong. Immortal Crocodile suddenly looked back. While everyone was surprised, they suddenly saw the green flame spew out of the pit like an explosion. Yu Qianqiu spat out a mouthful of blood, and retreated a few steps. Nongju flashed to hold him, and suddenly turned back to stare at the pit that forced out the green flame. A majestic, ancient, and oppressive aura suddenly erupted from the pit, instantly shocking everyone present and causing their hearts to tremble. They saw a ball of black light slowly rising from the deep pit, and there seemed to be a little person in the middle. The black light hung in the air, emitting a thick and ancient aura that shocked the common people. It was like a domineering king looking down on the world. Such a powerful and terrifying aura oppressed everyone so much that they could not even think of resisting. Immortal Crocodile looked at the mysterious black light in shock, and his blank eyes seemed to pull his thoughts back to the distant past. Mother asterisk her. That dog is here again, ba. Yu Qianqiu pushed Nongju away, spat out the bloody saliva in his mouth, and turned back to Immortal Crocodile and roared. Old monster, why are you in a daze? He's not your lover, quickly kill him. Otherwise that bastard Yan Juexing will come back to life again. He exerted all his strength. Swoosh! A huge green broadsword of more than 10 meters appeared in his hand. He flew up, and with a cry of awe, he slashed at the mysterious black light with all his strength at this moment. Everyone came to their senses because of Yu Qianqiu's roar, and they knew that the consequences were extremely serious. Nongju's bamboo flute whistled out, when Lanfeng quickly put Lu Yanqing on the ground, and his huge silver sword shot out, setting off waves of Gangqi. A flying sword also flashed out of Li Duxing's storage bag. Everyone focused their attacks on the mysterious black light. The mysterious black light seemed to have sensed that someone was going to attack it, and it emitted black light thorns, directly facing the attacks from all directions. Bang! 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 A series of loud noises sounded, and the waves of Gangqi surged, making people feel that the world was changing. The earth shook, and the towering medicine hut mountain collapsed in the shaking. Each of the 4 attacking silhouettes spat out a mouthful of blood with a puff sound. They were violently thrown far away. Bang! 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 All of them sank deep into the mountains surrounding the Spirit Fang Valley. It gave people the impression that the stronger one's attack was, the greater the rebound force would be. The huge green fire broadsword collapsed at the moment of the counterattack, and so did the bamboo flute and the flying sword. The 4 attacking weapons were all destroyed in the blink of an eye. Bing Qingzi stared at the mysterious black light in the sky in disbelief. Lu Yanqing was still lying on the ground, but her body was covered with a thick layer of dust. The 2 people who didn't attack seemed to be unharmed. The 4 people who were shaken away pulled out of the deep mountain, and only Yu Qianqiu crawled out. Fortunately, the 4 people were not weak, and they were all masters of the Huashan realm. Although they were all badly injured, it was not fatal. After the 4 people came out, they all stared at the mysterious black light in the sky with blood dripping from their mouths. Yu Qianqiu stretched out his hand to wipe his mouth and nose, but the blood kept flowing out as if it was free. The mysterious black light flickered, and just as it was about to fly away, a figure suddenly appeared out of nowhere to stop it. Immortal Lord Crocodile's arms turned into 2 huge rough palms, and he directly held the black light in his palms. The black light seemed to be unwilling to be controlled, and it surged violently. Immortal Lord Crocodile gripped it tightly with a serious expression, and they were in a deadlock. Suddenly, Immortal Lord Crocodile let out an angry roar, and forcibly dragged the mysterious black light down from the sky. The people below were shocked. They didn't expect that the mysterious black light, which the 4 of them couldn't handle together, would be dragged down by him alone. Except for Yu Qianqiu, everyone else gasped. They didn't know who this person was, and how could he have such a profound cultivation? However, everyone could tell that the pair of hands that had thrown the escaping Yan Juexing back were the same pair of giant hands. Yu Qianqiu's nose was bleeding profusely as he waved his arms excitedly and said, "Good job, old monster. Kill it for me." Perhaps he was too excited, but then he clutched his chest with a pained expression, and couldn't shout anymore. Nongju, and when Lanfeng remembered that a certain guy had mentioned looking for help in the South Sea purple bamboo forest, and they looked at the ashen-faced Yu Qianqiu at the same time. They didn't know where this strange guy had found such an expert. At this moment, the scenery between heaven and earth suddenly became a little dim. Everyone looked up into the sky and found that a hazy gray fog had suddenly appeared in the sky above Spirit Fong Valley. It wasn't actually thick, but it seemed to cover the blazing sun's radiance. What was inconceivable was that a pair of slender and huge eyes suddenly appeared in the hazy gray fog, and those cold and merciless eyes looked down indifferently. Everyone felt that it was an illusion, but they inexplicably felt that the pair of eyes contained an awe-inspiring and unquestionable majesty. At the same time that the strange phenomenon appeared in the sky, the mysterious black light that Immortal Lord Crocodile was slowly dragging down seemed to have infinite power in an instant, and the light suddenly soared. Bang! The two huge hands that Immortal Lord Crocodile had conjured instantly collapsed. After the black light broke free, it slammed into Immortal Lord Crocodile, who had already been sent flying. Bang! Puff! Immortal Lord Crocodile's figure was instantly sent flying into the deep mountains in the distance, and a loud rumble could be faintly heard in the distance. Everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. After the mysterious black light hit Immortal Lord Crocodile, it instantly turned into a stream of light and quickly disappeared. The group of people was stunned for a long time, and suddenly found that the sky had returned to normal. They couldn't help but look up, and the gray fog in the sky had disappeared. The pair of slender, cold and merciless eyes had also disappeared, as if nothing had happened just now. Chapter 781. At this moment, Lingfang Valley had already lost its beautiful appearance. It was full of desolation, and not a single plant could be seen. The ground seemed to have been plowed a few times. It was like a chicken that had shed its feathers. It was so naked that it was somewhat unsightly to look at. The medicine cottage, the landmark mountain in Lingfang Valley, had also collapsed. None of the people present had expected that the consequences of killing Yan Juexing would be like this, especially the mysterious black light. It was simply unbelievable. It seemed to be much higher than Yan Juexing's cultivation. How could this be? Everyone was full of doubts, when Lanfeng was the first to wake up among the dumbfounded crowd. His skin had basically turned black from the inside out, and he seemed to be shrouded in a layer of death qi. The first thing he did after waking up was to rush to where Lu Yanqing used to be, dig up the soil, and dig Lu Yanqing out. Absorbing Star's great skill. Yu Qianqiu's shout shocked everyone. They all looked over, and saw a dried corpse slowly falling down in front of him. When it hit the ground, it was smashed into pieces. The dead man was none other than Bing Qingzi. Nongzhu flashed over, and stood beside Yu Qianqiu. Looking at the wreckage on the ground, she covered her slightly uncomfortable chest and frowned. Are you a mad dog? Bite whoever you see. He has already given up. Why did you still kill him? Yu Qianqiu raised his hand to wipe the nosebleed on Dahua's face and said ferociously, If Yan Juexing is completely dead, I don't mind letting him go. The problem is that he ran away again. This old guy is most likely to be of great help to him. He can't be left alive. Nongzhu sighed speechlessly. 4 experts at the late stage of Huashan realm died in the Battle of Lingfang Valley, and all of them died in the hands of this guy. From today on, this guy can be regarded as the torture envoy of the demon region. With his means, there was no need for her to worry anymore. It seemed that Bai Changchun did not choose the wrong person. Nongzhu turned her head and asked suspiciously, What is your cultivation level now? Why do I feel that you have reached the Huashan realm? Yu Qianqiu had a messy face and a head full of braids. He looked around and grinned evilly, looking exactly like a member of the beggars' gang. His sinister smile suddenly came to an abrupt halt as he cried out in alarm. He teleported to the original hillside and looked around, not knowing where the Enchantress of 100 Charms and Yin Yu were buried. He immediately used the earth magic art and quickly sensed the location where the 2 women were buried. The soil there retreated like a tide, revealing the 2 women lying inside. He quickly checked the condition of the 2 women, and after discovering that they were fine, he heaved a sigh of relief and sat down on the ground. Nongzhu followed them. When she saw the 2 girls, she looked slightly unhappy, but she still asked, How is it? He's fine, but he's being controlled by the demonic eye. I don't know how to get rid of it. The worried Yu Qianqiu suddenly paused and said to Nongzhu, "Keep an eye on them for me. I'll be back soon." Then, he flew into the deep mountains in the distance, in the direction where Immortal Crocodile was sent flying. Flying in that direction, he easily found Immortal Crocodile. The target was very obvious. On a collapsed mountain, a battered and exhausted Immortal Crocodile was sitting cross-legged, healing his injuries. Before Yu Qianqiu landed, he opened his eyes and looked up, then closed them again. Yu Qianqiu knew that he was healing, so he landed beside him and did not disturb him. After a while, he slowly exhaled and opened his eyes. As soon as Immortal Crocodile opened his eyes, he looked at Yu Qianqiu with a serious expression and said, "The demonic god." Yu Qianqiu squatted beside him and was stunned. He asked in surprise, "What's wrong?" Immortal Crocodile shook his head and sighed. That Yan Zhuixing is indeed a person blessed by the demonic god. The demonic god made a move just now, and that aura was the aura of a god. Yu Qianqiu smiled sheepishly. In fact, he had long guessed that Yan Zhuixing was a person blessed by the demonic god. He just deliberately hid it, mainly because he was afraid of scaring this guy. Now that this old monster was injured, he really felt a little embarrassed. He continued to fool him. "That's impossible. Aren't you still fine? If the demonic god really made a move, I'm afraid you would already be dead. How could you still be sitting here talking to me?" Immortal Crocodile smiled bitterly. "The demonic god doesn't even bother to fight me. We are not on the same level at all. He only indirectly made a move to warn me. If he really made a move directly, I would not be alive. What kind of person is the demonic god? He is a world-shaking genius of a generation." According to Immortal Emperor Jin Tai, who had come into contact with the gods, even in the divine realm, the demonic god is a well-known figure. How can we hope to reach him? Yu Qianqiu laughed and patted him on the shoulder. "That's right. He is a god. Why would he bother with small fry like us? He will do his own thing. We will do ours. What's there to be emotional about? There's no need to be afraid of him." Immortal Crocodile's expression twitched. "That's a demonic god. How can we not be afraid? Who cares? Just don't provoke him next time. If we can't afford to provoke him, we can at least hide from him." Yu Qianqiu tried his best to squeeze out a smile on his face to comfort him. However, the more he smiled, the more anxious he became. Immortal Crocodile immediately rolled his eyes. "You want a next time? You really think that the demonic god is just a decoration? You will die. Next time do it yourself. Don't call me. I can't afford to provoke him. Haha. Who would take the initiative to provoke him? Let's talk about the future in the future. Let's get down to business first." "That." Yu Qianqiu coughed. "Old monster, let me ask you something. Do you have any way of finding out where Yan Zhuixing's primordial spirit escaped to? You still want to do it?" Immortal Crocodile stood up and sneered. "Provoking the demonic god again. He's not to be trifled with. Don't cause trouble until the demonic god breaks through the void and arrives personally. When that happens, you won't even have time to cry. No one in this world can protect you. Damn it. I don't care if he's a demonic god or a bird god. So what if he's a demonic god?" Yu Qianqiu was enraged. He stood up and waved his arms, shouting, "Even if I don't go looking for that bastard will come looking for me for revenge sooner or later. Rather than that, I might as well take advantage of his weakness and kill him." Immortal Crocodile snorted. "If you really want to kill him, why didn't you use the divine sword just now? Before the demonic god makes his move, that black light shouldn't be able to withstand the power of the divine sword. I guarantee that Yan Zhuixing's body and soul will be destroyed. Isn't that the end of it?" Divine sword. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. His temper disappeared, and he stood there dumbfounded. After a long time, he suddenly beat his chest and howled. "Damn it! Why didn't you say earlier that the divine sword could break it? I forgot." Immortal Crocodile sneered. "If I had known that he was protected by the demonic god, I would have definitely told you that the divine sword could break it. But I wouldn't have come. I'm really impressed with myself now. I actually fought with the demonic god." Yu Qianqiu immediately became listless. It was all because of his own thoughts. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have hidden it from him. After a long silence, he asked weakly, Is there any way to find Yan Juexing's escaped primordial spirit? Immortal Crocodile shook his head. You overestimate me. Even the powerful demonic god isn't omnipotent. The human world is so big. It won't be easy to find him unless he shows himself. Maybe, since the demonic god wants to protect him, he might use a great technique to break through the void and take his primordial spirit away. Even if he didn't leave, his body has been destroyed. He shouldn't be able to cause any trouble in the short term. Sigh. I hope so. Yu Qianqiu sighed and waved his hand. Forget it. Since we can't find him, forget it. The most important thing now is to find a way to get rid of the people controlled by the demonic eye. The celestial realm and the demon realm had a great war before. There should be a way to get rid of it, right? Otherwise, with the power of the demonic eye, the demon realm wouldn't have been sealed, right? The demonic eye is the demonic eye. It's one of the demonic eye's moves that can control people. It's called demonic eye ecstasy. The two cannot be confused. Demonic eye ecstasy is just an evil art in the celestial realm's terms. It's not the most powerful art of the demonic eye. Demonic eye ecstasy is powerful because if the controlled person doesn't expose himself, it will be difficult for others to find out. In fact, once discovered, it's not difficult to get rid of it. Immortal Crocodile said slowly. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up. Not difficult to get rid of. That means you have a way to get rid of it. You said it yourself. The immortals and demons have fought before. Naturally, there is a way to get rid of it. Otherwise, if the people of the celestial realm are controlled, what's the point of fighting? We can just admit defeat. Immortal Crocodile said in a low voice. There are many ways to get rid of it. The demonic eye mainly controls people's primordial spirits. Many people in the celestial realm have extraordinary attainments in primordial spirit cultivation and can easily get rid of the control. In fact, the controlled person can also get rid of the control themselves. As long as their cultivation surpasses the caster, their primordial spirit will also be stronger, and they can usually get rid of it. There's also the simplest and most effective way. Kill the caster completely, and the spell will naturally get rid of it. Yu Qianqiu rubbed his chin and said suspiciously, the last two methods can definitely be rejected. You're a dignified immortal lord, so you must have extraordinary attainments in primordial spirit cultivation, right? Then, don't tell me to get rid of the control and bring them to the celestial realm. I can't do that at the moment. You know the reason better than I do. Although my primordial spirit is strong, I've never dabbled in this aspect. I can kill people, but I can't save them. Immortal Crocodile said teasingly, there's a good way. You can find the caster and ask him to get rid of it himself. Yu Qianqiu's face immediately darkened. He said in a low voice, after talking for so long, it's all nonsense. Immortal Crocodile waved his hand and interrupted him. I already said that there are many ways to get rid of it. What's the rush? Let me finish. In this world, there is a kind of person who cultivates magic arts that are mighty and righteous. They are born to be the nemesis of evil and crooked cultivators. All ghosts and monsters are just small tricks that can't see the light in front of them. A mere demon eye ecstasy can easily break them. Yu Qianqiu pulled a long face and said, don't tell me you want me to go to the celestial realm to look for it again. I admit that I don't have that ability. Are you happy now? Immortal Crocodile said in surprise. Why do you need to go to the celestial realm to look for it? Is your master's morality technique not strong enough? With your master's methods, it's easy to get rid of this little spell. Chapter 782. Morality Technique? Yu Qianqiu's expression froze as he thought of Bai Changchun's evil means. After a moment of hesitation, he slowly shook his head and said, Old monster, you'd better help me think of another way. He had promised Bai Changchun that he would not look for him again. If he broke his promise, he might not be able to find Bai Changchun again. It was better not to do this unless he had no other choice. Immortal Lord Crocodile was slightly disappointed. In fact, he really wanted to interact more with people like Bai Changchun. Such people had extraordinary insights in cultivation. If he interacted more with experts with such high comprehension, he would often be enlightened with just a word from them and solve the problems that had plagued him for many years. He thought that Yu Qianqiu could not find Bai Changchun, so he took out a small bottle from the storage bracelet and handed it to him. "Take it." Yu Qianqiu took it and was stunned. He asked, "What's this?" Immortal Crocodile said disapprovingly, "Spirit Awakening Pill. It can expel evil spirits and remove the control of the vital spirit by demonic arts." "Damn, why didn't you take out such a good thing earlier? What are you talking about?" Yu Qianqiu turned around and flew directly to Lingfang Valley. When he returned to Lingfang Valley, he saw Lu Yanqing standing beside Li Duxing and Wen Lanfeng. Nongzhu also brought the two unconscious women to them. Lu Yanqing had short hair and tearful eyes, but it did not diminish her peerless elegance. Instead, it showed another kind of unique charm. She was really a natural beauty. She was staring at the collapsed medicine hut with tearful eyes. Yu Qianqiu landed beside them and looked at Lu Yanqing from head to toe. Although he was a little annoyed, he was still amazed. Yu Qianqiu coldly snorted and said, "Seniors, you must keep an eye on this crazy woman. Her good intentions are not repaid, and she keeps biting people. I now suspect that she has already been controlled by Yan Juixing's demonic eye. Seniors, you should be careful." When Lanfeng smiled bitterly and suddenly bowed deeply to Yu Qianqiu. "It's all in the past. You don't have to mention it anymore." She was just anxious and confused, but now she has sobered up. What? Yu Qianqiu pointed at Lu Yanqing and turned his face. F***CK. I risked everything to save her, but she turned around and tried to kill me, and now I can't even talk. Aren't you guys being too overbearing? When Lanfeng was rendered speechless by his words. Li Duxing, on the other hand, appeared to be very calm. He closed his eyes and paid no attention. Lu Yanqing slowly stepped forward and bowed to Yu Qianqiu. "It's all my fault." Before she finished speaking, a large string of tears immediately fell. Yu Qianqiu's anger was almost extinguished, and he couldn't vent his anger. He cursed in his heart. Beautiful women always take advantage of others. Looking at the lifeless Wen Lanfeng, he coughed and changed the topic. "Great magic, Dr. Lu, don't cry anymore. It's all in the past. Do something useful. Senior Wen is almost dead because of you. Hurry up and find a way to save her. Don't always let the person who cares for you get hurt." Then he stopped talking to her, walked to the two unconscious women, and showed them the small bottle in his palm. As soon as he opened the bottle, everyone immediately smelled a fragrance. As the fragrance entered their lungs, they were refreshed. They knew the thing in the bottle was not simple. Yu Qianqiu poured out a white elixir the size of a soybean into his palm. Nongzhu beside him asked curiously, "What is this?" "Awakening elixir. It said that it can remove the control of the magic eye. I don't know if it works." Yu Qianqiu looked around with the small pill in his hand. He was also confused. "Why is it so small?" When Lanfeng's attention was on Lu Yanqing. Hearing this, he suddenly turned around and stared at the thing in Yu Qianqiu's hand. He was worried about Wen Rui. If he died, Wen Rui would be the only pillar of the Wen family. Lu Yanqing and Li Duxing also looked at him. They saw Yu Qianqiu pour out two elixirs in his hand. Then he opened the lips of Enchantress and Yenyu and put one elixir into their mouths. Then he forced the elixir into their abdomen to help them refine. When the elixir was gone, a faint red mist rose from the heads of the two women, with a slight smell of blood, and slowly dissipated in the air. Looking at the two women who were still in a coma, Yu Qianqiu was a little hesitant. He didn't know if it would work, so he tried to wake Enchantress up first. Enchantress woke up slowly. The first thing she saw was Yu Qianqiu, who was staring at her with wide eyes. Her eyes fell on Yu Qianqiu's head. She was stunned and said, "Why do you have so many braids on your head?" The people around looked at each other. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. Then he patted his chest and said with a smile, Well, it means you are good to say that." But at this moment Enchantress suddenly exclaimed, Yan Juixing is here." She suddenly stood up. Yu Qianqiu turned around and said with a smile, "Don't worry, he has already left." As he spoke, he patted Yenyu to wake her up. The latter's reaction was almost exactly the same as Enchantress's. Yu Qianqiu immediately told the two of them what had happened. Only then did the two women let out a sigh of relief with lingering fear. Ah! Yu Qianqiu stretched his waist in a comfortable mood and sighed. This trip was not in vain. I finally solved the problem. But before he put down his hand, a soft and fragrant body rushed into his arms and hugged him. She directly used her fragrant lips to block his mouth. Huh! Yu Qianqiu's eyes widened. When he realized it was Yenyu, he quickly pushed her away. He frowned and said seriously, Owner Yen, we are not that familiar with each other, right? Dead man. You still dare to lie to me. Yenyu was shy. She punched Yu Qianqiu's chest, and then stuck her lips to Yu Qianqiu's without any scruples. Knowing that her sweetheart came from afar to save her, her heart was as sweet as drinking honey. Now she was ready to risk everything. She just wanted to kiss him at all costs, no matter where they were. Damn it! Since I've been exposed, I'm ready to risk everything. Yu Qianqiu hugged her tightly. They kissed passionately in front of everyone, which stunned the group of people. This action was a little out of touch with this era. Enchantress's smiling face hid a little loneliness. Li Duxing, Wen Lanfeng and Lu Yanqing turned their heads to one side. Only Nongzhu's face was a little dark. No one could be happy to see their son-in-law kissing another woman in front of them. Enough! Don't you know where you are? Nongzhu finally couldn't help shouting angrily. They finally separated, breathing heavily. After looking at each other and smiling, all the grudges disappeared. They couldn't help kissing passionately again. After several times they stopped. Yenyu stared at him with a blushing face. She bit her attractive red lips and said, Your braid is so ugly. Don't leave me alone again. I'll comb your braid. Haha. Yu Qianqiu raised her pink chin with a sinister smile and said, I like it. Yenyu immediately punched him again. People beside them couldn't help shivering and felt goosebumps all over. When Lanfeng coughed and came over to disturb them with embarrassment, he said, That. Yu Qianqiu, can you give me a refreshing pill? When Rui hasn't removed the control of the magic eye yet. No problem. Yu Qianqiu was in a good mood. He took out a small bottle and poured out a pill for him. When Lanfeng carefully put it away, as if he had received a treasure, Nongzhu came over with a sullen face. She stared at Wen Lanfeng and said seriously, How is your injury? I think it's a big trouble. Let Lu Yan see it in the morning. If you need help, take advantage of the fact that everyone is here. She glanced at Yu Qianqiu and thought that this guy had a lot of treasures. He could even remove the control of the magic eye. Maybe he also had a panacea to save Wen Lanfeng. Yu Qianqiu, who was holding hands with Yenyu and flirting, didn't know that Nongzhu had paid attention to him. Wen Lanfeng smiled bitterly and said, The blood devil palm is really not simple. The blood in my body is about to solidify. Plus I was injured just now. I'm afraid there's no way to save it. I can't hold on for a few days. Don't bother anymore. Hearing that Wen Lanfeng was going to die, Yu Qianqiu was embarrassed to flirt with Yenyu anymore. He looked at Wen Lanfeng with great sympathy and concern. Lu Yanqing, who was silent in sorrow, suddenly raised her head. It seemed that she just remembered that Wen Lanfeng had been hit by Yin Zhuixing's blood devil palm. She hurriedly grabbed Wen Lanfeng's hand and anxiously said, There must be a way. There must be a way. I must have a way to cure you. I must be able to cure you. There was a tremble in her voice. It was the fear of losing the most precious thing. Wen Lanfeng looked at her quietly. This was the first time that she took the initiative to hold her hand. Although it was to check her injury, it could be seen that she still cared about her very much. Unknowingly, Wen Lanfeng's eyes became a little moist. He slowly turned his head to the side, and inadvertently, 2 streaks of tears slid down his skinny cheeks. How many years of unwavering love. How many people laughed at him behind his back. But his sincerity had never wavered. For her, he could give up everything. Because in this world, there would never be anyone who would treat her better than himself. Today's scene was what he had dreamed of, and he had always hoped that one day, she would take the initiative to hold his hand. But, wasn't this day a little too late? If only he had a little more time to reminisce about this moment, it would have been good. Why did it have to happen when she was about to reach the end of her life? Fate was so cruel. People who had reached Wen Lanfeng's level of cultivation would naturally have some understanding of their own injuries. She estimated that she was almost there. Only Lu Yanqing, who was treating Wen Lanfeng, was anxiously murmuring, "I must be able to cure you. I must be able to cure you." Everyone else was silent. It seemed that they had even forgotten to breathe. They all noticed the tears on Wen Lanfeng's thin and dark face. This scene shocked everyone. Wen Lanfeng, a top expert in the cultivation world, was actually crying. Chapter 783. Wen Lanfeng raised his face as high as possible. He didn't want the tears on his face to fall, nor did he want Lu Yanqing to see it. Yes, Lu Yanqing really didn't see it now. She was burning with anxiety, and the only thing she was thinking about was how to cure Wen Lanfeng. She took out a set of instruments from the storage bag and pricked Wen Lanfeng's finger with a silver needle. For Yu Qianqiu, it was like a test. However, Lu Yanqing didn't see it, but it didn't mean that others didn't see it. His head was raised higher and higher as he faced the sunlight, causing the tear stains and teardrops on his face to become more and more conspicuous. They sparkled and sparkled on his skinny and dark face, as clear as his heart towards Lu Yanqing, without any impurities in his eyes. Anyone who saw Wen Lanfeng at this time would be moved. The two women, Enchantress and Yinyu, couldn't stand it anymore. They turned around quietly and sobbed secretly. Their silent tears were much stronger than Wen Lanfeng's. They kept wiping their tears, but they couldn't dry them. The men were speechless. It seemed that they understood many things they didn't understand before at this moment. The bitterness in these two lines of tears was not something that outsiders could understand. Which of the men present didn't ridicule Wen Lanfeng in their hearts before? But these two lines of tears made them understand that Wen Lanfeng was not stupid. He knew what sarcasm was, and he knew that he was an idiot in the eyes of outsiders. However, his love was more persistent than anyone else. His love was purer than anyone else, and his love was more thorough than anyone else. He was determined to protect his true love. He would rather give up everything, even his own life, than let his beloved suffer a little grievance. Was this behavior stupid or not? Was it rational? Anyway, these men admitted that none of them could do it. But because of today, they remembered what was called sincerity, an incomparable sincerity. Damn it! Why are you crying? You make me feel uncomfortable. Yu Qianqiu scratched his scalp with a strange expression. Li Duxing took a deep breath and slightly closed his eyes. His face looked more indifferent. Nong Zhu looked at Lu Yanqing, who was getting more and more busy, and suddenly frowned. She seemed to have gradually lost her sense of propriety. She immediately shouted in a deep voice, "Lu Yanqing, what the hell are you doing? Can you cure the blood devil palm or not? If you can't, we'll think of something else. Wen Lanfeng doesn't have that much time for you to waste." Lu Yanqing shivered, and the thing in her hand fell to the ground. She squatted down and picked something up, and said in a trembling voice, Can cure?" Nongzhu asked curiously, "If you can cure it, why are you still busy? Hurry up and treat it. If there's anything you need, just tell us. We'll think of a way to solve it." When Lanfeng took advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention to him, and quickly wiped away the tears on his face, he looked at Lu Yanqing and said with a faint smile, "I guess there must be something difficult? Since that's the case, then forget it. There's no need to force yourself." "Bullshit. What do you mean by don't force yourself?" Nongzhu stared at Lu Yanqing and shouted, "Lu Yanqing, stand up and talk to me. What's going on?" Lu Yanqing slowly stood up, pinching the thing in her hand. It seemed that she was very hard, and her knuckles had turned white. Under the repeated urging of Nongzhu, she finally said with a pale face, "Make a few elixirs, and I'll cast a spell, and then I can." She had been there all the time, but there had been no result, which made them very anxious. Nongzhu touched her forehead, and did not know whether to laugh or cry. She said, "Can what? Tell me quickly. Is Wen Lanfeng's life so unbearable in your eyes?" The last sentence was a little heavy. Lu Yanqing immediately shook her head, and then bit her lip and said, "Force out the blood and the body together with the suppressed blood devil palm. Provided that we find two people with similar blood types to draw their blood for Wen Lanfeng. First, wash the whole body with blood, and then change the whole body blood again. Nongju was stunned and doubted. Is this method feasible? First wash, and then change all the blood in Wen Lanfeng's body. How much blood will it take? Then won't the blood of those two people be drained? Wouldn't it be exchanging two lives for one? Now he vaguely knew why Lu Yanqing did not answer. This woman never killed people. What was the difference between this way of saving people and letting her kill people? There's really no need. Wen Lanfeng stared at Lu Yanqing and said with a faint smile, Yanqing, your master is famous. In this life, you uphold the medical ethics passed down by your master, and only save people. Although you have cultivated until now, you have never killed a person, and I have never even heard of you fighting with anyone. You are like an orchid in an empty valley in this deep mountain. How can I let you kill? How can I let you feel uneasy for the rest of your life? Humph! Yu Qianqiu sneered and said, Not necessarily. Didn't you see that she was alive and kicking and wanted to kill me? Nongju said with a sullen face, Why are you meddling? Fine. Yu Qianqiu said, I won't meddle in this matter even if you ask me to. Wen Lanfeng smiled bitterly and stretched out his thin hands towards Lu Yanqing's shoulders. Just when he was about to touch them, he stopped in the air. He was used to holding Lu Yanqing when she was in a coma. Now that she was awake, he was afraid that she would be unhappy. After a moment of hesitation, seeing that Lu Yanqing did not object, he slowly put it on her shoulder. The man and the woman looked at each other and suddenly showed a knowing smile. Lu Yanqing suddenly said with certainty, I can do it, I must do it, I will cure you. Wen Lanfeng put his hands on her fragrant shoulders and shook his head with a smile. Your hands are the cleanest and most benevolent hands in the entire cultivation world. They are as pure as your heart. I won't let them be tainted by killing because of me. Lu Yanqing took his arm and said anxiously, As long as I can save you, I am willing to do anything. But I refuse. Wen Lanfeng smiled and said, I don't want you to feel guilty because of me. That's bullshit. Nongju gritted her teeth and said, Fine. You are all the kindest people in the cultivation world. We are all evil people. Then she turned around and said, Yu Qianqiu, they all want to sacrifice themselves to be good people. Can you think of a way to help them? Yu Qianqiu was also gritting his teeth. When he heard this, he was stunned and said, How can I help them? Nongju immediately pointed to Wen Lanfeng and said, Think of a way to save him. Won't they save killing people? Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes and said, I don't know anything about the blood devil palm. How can I save him? Nongju winked and gestured. Do you have any elixirs? Like the spirit sobering pill just now. You're crazy. Do you think I run a pharmacy? Where did you get so many elixirs? Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and snappily said, No, you just told me not to get involved. You really don't want to save him. Nongju said harshly. Yu Qianqiu immediately raised his eyebrows and sneered. What? Do you want a one-on-one fight? He was not afraid of Nongju now. He would fight with her anytime. You two, don't worry about me. Wen Lanfeng stopped them and looked at Yu Qianqiu and said, Yu Qianqiu, I really want to ask you for a favor. I hope you can help me. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. If it was Nongju, he would not mind arguing with her. But when Lanfeng, a dying man, was begging him, it was really hard for him to refuse. He smiled awkwardly and said, Forget it. You don't have to beg me. I'll try my best. No, you misunderstand. I don't want you to save my life. It's something else. As long as you can promise me this, I'd rather die than regret it. Wen Lanfeng smiled calmly and said, You're the only one in the world who can do this. Others may not be as good as you. Yu Qianqiu and Nongju looked at each other. The others were also confused. Yu Qianqiu asked suspiciously, What's the matter? I can't guarantee that I can do it. Tell me about it first. His old habit was to leave a way out for himself first. When Lanfeng said with a free and easy face, Lu Yanqing accidentally said that your music is unparalleled in the world. There are only a few people in the world who can get a song from you. Once it comes from you, it's a peerless masterpiece, enough to be sung for thousands of years. She is very envious of you. I hope you can also write a song for her. It's my last gift for her. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Yu Qianqiu. Temptress was one of the people who knew Yu Qianqiu's attainments in this aspect. She could not help but show a very expectant look. Yan Yu's eyes were full of little stars. She had begun to plan in her heart to ask Yu Qianqiu to write a song for her. On the other hand, Yu Qianqiu's face turned green and twitched. After a long time, he took a deep breath and said, "Senior one, don't make things difficult for me. I'd better think of a way to heal your injuries. This is more important to me than curing my injury. It's my last wish." When Lanfeng sighed, Nongzhu immediately became furious and shouted, "Wish my ass. When Lanfeng, you're out of your mind. What the hell are you talking about?" All the people were speechless. Lu Yanqing anxiously pulled Wen Lanfeng and said, "I just said it casually. Don't take it seriously. The most important thing is to cure your injury first." "Yes. Damn. No wonder I felt it was familiar." Yu Qianqiu suddenly clapped his hands excitedly and shouted, attracting everyone's attention. He laughed and said, "Senior Lu, the method of blood exchange you mentioned actually doesn't require people to die. Think about it. Why do you have to find 2 people? Can't you find 200 people? Everyone will be fine, and we can save people. What do you think of this method?" He suddenly thought of this method because he suddenly thought of the blood donation in his previous life. Wasn't it just gathering a little to make a lot? For people in this era, although the method was simple, the idea was very advanced. Generally, they would not think of this. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Lu Yanqing again, looking forward to her reply. Lu Yanqing's eyes lit up and she said in surprise, "Of course it's possible. Why didn't I think of it?" Everyone heaved a sigh of relief when they heard that. They had finally found a way to make these 2 brainless men and women compromise. Nongzhu looked at Yu Qianqiu approvingly. He could see that as long as this guy was forced, he could always squeeze out a good solution to the problem. Chapter 784. Good. That's settled. Nongzhu waved her hand and said, "With Lu Yanqing's medical skills, there should be no problem. As for finding hundreds of people to draw their blood, it's a piece of cake. In Baiwan Kingdom, as long as when Lanfeng asks, not to mention 200 people, even 20,000 people can be easily gathered. Lu Yanqing, why don't you go to Baiwan Kingdom with Wen Lanfeng? It's also convenient." Lu Yanqing nodded slightly. Her eyes swept over the once lush and beautiful Lingfang Valley, which had become a barren land, and a trace of sadness and gloom flashed through her eyes. Seeing that the matter had been resolved, Yu Qianqiu looked at the enchantress and Yin Yu, and then looked at a mortal crocodile standing alone on the mountain not far away. He said with relief, "All right. Everyone disband and go about their own business. We're leaving too." He was about to greet a mortal crocodile and return to the demon domain with the enchantress and Yin Yu. Unexpectedly, when Lanfeng said, "Wait, Yu Qianqiu, you still haven't replied to what I just asked of you?" Yu Qianqiu was stunned. He was speechless to meet such an unreasonable person. He was about to lose his life, but he still asked for a song. He was not only a love-struck fool, but also an idiot. Nongzhu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She said, "When Lanfeng, heal your injury first. It's not like we won't meet again in the future. Why are you in such a hurry now?" When Lanfeng immediately transmitted his voice to Nongzhu. "It's not that I'm unreasonable, but it's really rare to encounter such an opportunity. This guy has always been elusive. Who knows when we will find him again, after we break up this time. What's more, I know that Lu Yanqing really likes his songs. If I don't take advantage of my injury now, it will be really inconvenient for me to ask for his help in the future. You should know that his current identity and cultivation are not what they used to be. You beat the drum. Just treat it as helping Lu Yanqing realize this wish. Besides, you are also a musician. Don't you want to see for yourself whether this guy is really as talented as the legend says?" He secretly transmitted his voice to Nongzhu, pretending to be in deep thought. Then he said slowly, "Nongzhu, I know my own injury. Although Lu Yanqing's medical skills are extraordinary, anything can happen. What if I have an accident this time?" Nongzhu stared at Wen Lanfeng, dumbfounded, and then looked at Yu Qianqiu with a strange expression. Wen Lanfeng was right. He also wanted to see if this guy was really as talented as the rumors said in the cultivation world. But no matter how he looked at it, this guy looked like a hooligan. How could he be talented? Lu Yanqing did not know what Wen Lanfeng was thinking and comforted him. Don't worry. I'm sure I can cure you. Yu Qianqiu, who was a little speechless, immediately nodded and cooperated. Yes. Yes. Senior Lu will definitely be able to cure you. Don't think too much about it. Wen Lanfeng said with a wry smile. Yu Qianqiu, is it so difficult for you to compose a song? The weather is unpredictable. If something really happens, today will be the last time we meet. Do you really have the heart to let me leave with regrets? Damn it. Someone even cursed himself to have an accident. Yu Qianqiu found it hard to refuse him, and couldn't help but hesitate. Nongzhu immediately coughed and said, Yu Qianqiu, all the right and wrong are in the past, but you can't forget one thing. She did help you before. You can decide what to do. I won't say more. Yu Qianqiu suddenly felt something was wrong. He was watching Nongzhu's expression suspiciously. Suddenly, someone behind him poked him. Looking back, he found it was Yanyu. He could not help asking her what she wanted. Yanyu said seriously, Isn't Senior Wen asking for it for Senior Lu? If it's convenient for you, compose a song for Senior Lu. As he spoke, he turned to look at the Allure Beauty and continued, Let's not talk about this matter anymore. Senior Lu has always taken good care of us. The Allure Beauty immediately met Yu Qianqiu's gaze and nodded heavily. The reason why Yanyu tried so hard was that she wanted to see if her man was really talented. She was looking forward to it very much. The temptress was also looking forward to what new song Yu Qianqiu could compose. Damn it! Since when did I owe so many favors? Yu Qianqiu glanced at them, and finally looked at Wen Lanfeng and Lu Yanqing a few more times, wondering which song he should choose that was more suitable for the two of them. What song should he choose? In contemplation, he paced back and forth with his hands behind his back. Sometimes he looked up to the sky, and sometimes he bent down. The people around him suddenly became a little excited. Judging from Yu Qianqiu's behavior, he had undoubtedly agreed. Obviously, he was preparing a good song. The temptress and Yanyu secretly looked at each other, and a smile quietly appeared on their faces. However, Nongzhu was still deeply doubtful. Was this guy for real? Could he compose a classic song in such a short time with his rascally look? How could a so-called classic be called a classic if it was not thoroughly tempered? At this moment, Yu Qianqiu's eyes suddenly stopped on a hillside in the distance, which was covered with weeds. It was so far away that he stared at it carefully. Amidst the lush green short grass, there was a beautiful Yu beauty blooming alone. The bright red color contained a little black ink. It was very beautiful. It was the poppy flower that he was very familiar with in his previous life. It was swaying shyly in the wind. He could not help sighing inwardly. I used to plant it on a large scale in my previous life. Damn it! I was distracted. When he came back to his senses, he accidentally glanced at Lu Yanqing. He was stunned for a moment, and then he looked back at the flower and thought to himself. Got it. Now that he knew what to do, he began to act tough again. In his words, since he had already given his all, he had to perform well when it was time to do so. Otherwise, he would have suffered a loss. He gazed at the Yu beauty with a faint smile on his face. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking abnormally tall and straight. He exuded a scholarly aura, and he really did have the demeanor of a scholar. Everyone present looked at each other in dismay. They all felt as if he had suddenly become a different person, and the feeling he gave off was like the difference between heaven and earth. Nongzhu squinted her eyes and laughed in her heart. Is this guy for real? Everyone's gazes followed Yu Qianqiu's gaze to the distant hillside. Because the surrounding area had been plowed by the battle, the green on the hillside was exceptionally eye-catching, especially the Yu beauty that was swaying shyly in the wind. Right at this moment, Yu Qianqiu flew over in a graceful manner and slowly descended on the hill. He stared silently at the flower for a while before he sat down cross-legged and casually took out a zither and placed it on his knees. Is it really starting? The enchantress and Yanyu immediately flew over, and Nongzhu also flew over with a smile. when Lanfeng called Lu Yanqing to fly together. Li Duxing could not help but run over to join in the fun. He had heard Yu Qianqiu's playing and singing in the ghost village, and it was really not enough. Immortal Lord Crocodile had a strange expression on his face as he moved closer to the group. However, he was still a distance away from them. Under everyone's gaze, Yu Qianqiu smiled elegantly at the fresh flower in front of him. It was a very graceful thing to do, but with his braids, it made people feel awkward no matter how they looked at it. Nongzhu said, "Boy, can you do it? If you can't, don't pretend here." Yu Qianqiu continued to maintain his poise, feeling disinclined to pay him any attention. Once he provoked him, the two of them would start bickering, and that would definitely ruin the atmosphere that had been built up with great difficulty. He looked up at Wen Lanfeng and Lu Yanqing and said with a faint smile, "Since Senior One has spoken, I, Yu Qianqiu, will present a song called Woman Flower to you two seniors. Enjoy it carefully." Woman Flower? The few of them smacked their lips and looked at Lu Yanqing together. It was obvious that the name of the song was specially made for Lu Yanqing. There was a faint trace of envy in the eyes of Enchantress and Yenyu. When Lanfeng seemed to like the song very much, he happily looked at Lu Yanqing, who was silent, and then looked at Yu Qianqiu, his eyes full of expectation. Yu Qianqiu stretched out his hand and gently caressed the Yu beauty in front of him. When he retracted his hand, he had already played a gentle and beautiful tune on the strings of the zither. The melody was so unique that it instantly dispelled the doubts in everyone's hearts. It was as if in the blink of an eye, they were placed in a quiet and serene valley. Everyone's eyes involuntarily focused on the Yu beauty. Yu Qianqiu's fingers were nimble and light as he plucked the strings of the zither. When the melody entered a soft and quiet state, he had already begun to echo the heartstrings of the zither. He hoarsely sang, "I have a flower planted in my heart, budding and waiting to bloom. Day and night, I eagerly await the one who has the heart to enter my dream." The beginning of the song was heart-stirring. In the blink of an eye, everyone was surprised, but in the blink of an eye, they were comforted by the beautiful music. Nongzhu stared at Yu Qianqiu in astonishment, her face full of disbelief. Lu Yanqing was the most moved. Her body trembled slightly, and the beginning of the song had already made her mood a little uncontrollable. Wasn't she singing her own heart? Yu Qianqiu stared at the Yu beauty affectionately and said, "Woman's flower, swaying in the world of mortals. Woman's flower, swaying gently in the wind. I only hope that there is a pair of gentle hands that can soothe the loneliness in my heart. I have a flower. The fragrance of the flowers fills the branches. Who will sincerely seek traces of the fragrance? Flowers don't bloom for long. What can be broken must be broken. Women are like flowers in a dream." Even if there was no flower in front of everyone at this time, there was already a flower in their minds, swaying gently in the wind, so lovely and touching. The sentence, "who will sincerely seek traces of the fragrance," immediately made Lu Yanqing bite her lips, almost unable to help herself. When Lanfeng's mind kept echoing the sentence, "Flowers don't bloom for long. What can be broken must be broken," tasting a trace of impulse. No need to hesitate, to cherish the taste. Yu Qianqiu smiled and shook his head slowly, and continued to sing. "I have a flower, growing in my heart. True love no one understands. Weeds have covered the hillside. The most heartache is to admire oneself. Woman's flower swaying in the world of mortals. Woman's flower swaying gently in the wind. I only hope that there is a pair of gentle hands that can soothe the loneliness in my heart. Woman's flower, swaying in the world of mortals. Woman's flower swaying gently in the wind. If you smell the strong fragrance of the flower, don't ask me for whom the flower is red." This section of faint singing immediately caused everyone's eyes to once again focus on Lu Yanqing. Everyone seemed to understand her in an instant. It turned out that this woman's heart was so weak and helpless, so beautiful that it made people feel heartache. Nongzhu stared at Yu Qianqiu speechlessly. She couldn't imagine how this guy could understand women so well, especially Lu Yanqing so well. The sentence, "if you smell the strong fragrance of the flower, don't ask me for whom the flower is red," made Nongzhu's thoughts fly, and she returned to those indulgent times. Yu Qianqiu's voice suddenly became high-pitched. After loving, one knows how heavy it is. After getting drunk, one knows how strong the wine is. Flowers bloom and wilt in the end. Fate does not stay, like the spring breeze comes and goes. Women are like flowers in a dream. Fate does not stay, like the spring breeze comes and goes. Women are like flowers in a dream. Women are like flowers in a dream. Chapter 785. The mountain breeze blew gently, and the sound of the zither stopped faintly. Everyone stood there in a daze, and they were captivated by the final note. They were dazed, and they were unable to recover from it for a long time. Yu Qianqiu looked around, and was very satisfied with the effect. His act of being a gentleman was not in vain. He put away the zither, and bent down to pluck the shy beauty Yu. He sniffed it, and walked to Wen Lanfeng with a smile, waving it in front of him. Wen Lanfeng came back to his senses, and looked at Yu Qianqiu with eyes full of amazement. He bowed deeply and thanked him. I have long heard that Yu Qianqiu is talented, but I never believed it. Today I have seen it with my own eyes, and heard it with my own ears. You are indeed worthy of your reputation. You flatter me. It's fine as long as it can satisfy Senior One. Yu Qianqiu stuffed the beauty Yu into his hand and patted it. He smiled and said, If you have smelled the fragrance of the flower, don't ask for whom the flower is red. You must know that women are like flowers are like dreams. There is no need to hesitate. I wish Senior Wen's lover a happy ending. Wen Lanfeng nodded excitedly and said, Thank you. He then strode to Lu Yanqing, and presented the flower in his trembling hands. He did not dare to look into Lu Yanqing's eyes. Only when his hands were empty did he dare to raise his head to look at her. Lu Yanqing held the beauty Yu in her fingers, and sniffed it with a depressed expression. Who knew that she would gently walk to Yu Qianqiu, and stare at Yu Qianqiu with her clear eyes and ask, Who do you think can understand the loneliness in my heart? Why did she go to ask him? Everyone's eyes flickered with suspicion. Yu Qianqiu's face stiffened. He immediately shook his head and said, I really don't understand. He then pointed to Wen Lanfeng and said, Senior Wen is a man with a heart. He will definitely understand. Lu Yanqing's eyes flashed with a trace of undetectable desolation, and said with a faint smile, I have always been very curious. What kind of world is Yu Qianqiu's world? Can you tell me? The enchantress and Yin Yu looked at each other. Nongzhu's mouth was slightly open, and Wen Lanfeng's chest was rising and falling rapidly. Li Duxing closed his eyes slightly. Immortal Crocodile, who was not far away, looked at him with burning eyes. Ah! Yu Qianqiu paused and secretly glanced at Wen Lanfeng. Then he laughed and said, My world is wonderful and exciting. It's hard for ordinary people to adapt to it. Just like the flower in Senior Lu's hand, it was only suitable to grow in this secluded valley, waiting for a sincere person to pluck it. On the other hand, the mortal world outside would only tarnish it, and make it lose its original fragrance. Then, it would no longer be it. Two different worlds could only exist side by side, but they could never intersect. Therefore, there is no need for Senior Lu to explore my world. Lu Yanqing looked at the flower in her hand and said with a faint smile, But it was you who plucked it just now. Yu Qianqiu was taken aback. Suddenly, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, Senior Lu, I'm a crude man. I'm more interested in the topic of having sex with women. Flowery topics really don't suit me. You should find someone who understands. Then he said to the enchantress, Yin Yu, Immortal Crocodile and Nongzhu, The matter here is over and we should go. Then he cupped his hands and said to the others, Goodbye. After that, he took the lead and flew away. The people he called immediately followed him, and even Nongzhu did not say a word. The sky was high and the clouds were thin, and the earth was boundless with mountains. There was still a slight breeze blowing through the mountains. On the hillside, there were 3 people standing quietly amidst the lush green weeds. Lu Yanqing, who now had short hair, stared blankly at the horizon where Yu Qianqiu and the others had disappeared. She softly and tactfully murmured, Fate does not stop, like the spring breeze that comes and goes. Women are like flowers in a dream. Women are like flowers in a dream. In the sky, The group of people flew quickly in the direction of the South Sea purple bamboo forest. Immortal Crocodile, who had the highest cultivation, was following behind, and Yu Qianqiu was flying slowly in front listlessly. Nongzhu flashed to his side, coughed and said, "Well, Yu Qianqiu." Yu Qianqiu suddenly turned around and interrupted. "I know what you want to say, but I don't want to talk to you now, and don't ask me anything." Nongzhu ignored him and sneered. "I know what you think I want to say to you, but it is not what you think. I just want to praise your good singing. You have deceived many women with your singing, haven't you? F***ck. I lied to you." Yu Qianqiu was so angry that he turned around and flew backward. He pointed at them and said angrily, "I said I wasn't going to sing, but you guys just had to instigate me to sing. Now look at you, singing caused trouble, didn't you?" Nongzhu sneered. "The most beautiful woman in the world. You must be proud of yourself, aren't you? I don't have anything in common with you, so don't talk to me." Yu Qianqiu warned and turned back to fly. The Allure Beauty and Yin Yu looked at each other in dismay. The former gave the latter a meaningful glance, and Yin Yu tacitly understood and flew to Yu Qianqiu's side. She said in astonishment, "The song just now was very nice. What happened when he sang? Why didn't I recognize it?" Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows and tilted his head with a suspicious look. Yin Yu ignored him, hugged his arm, and said coquettishly, "When are you going to give me a song? Is that okay?" Yu Qianqiu's spirit was immediately roused when he touched Yin Yu's ample bosom with his elbow. His gloomy face instantly brightened up, and all his worries were thrown out of the window. He winked at her bosom and said, "Do you really want it?" Yin Yu nodded solemnly. Yu Qianqiu immediately smiled like a fox that had stolen a chicken and promised, Okay, sure. Find a place where there is no one, and I will sing 18 touches for you." "Really?" Yin Yu said with surprise. Yu Qianqiu moved his elbow and said with a smile, "Of course." Yin Yu saw that he was unhappy, so she came to cheer him up. She didn't expect that Yu Qianqiu would really promise to give her a song, so she was really overjoyed. She didn't expect that his words were full of dirty meaning, and she hugged him more tightly in joy. Yu Qianqiu's face was full of smile. Happiness is always more important than trouble. The night in the South Sea purple bamboo forest was especially charming. Tonight, the purple bamboo forest was filled with the laughter of women. As the saying goes, 3 women make a play, and it is lively when they are together. Purple Dress was very happy to have a companion, and she fully displayed the spirit of a host and welcomed them warmly. The 3 women chattered almost endlessly, and all the men stood aside. There should have been 4 women, but unfortunately, Furong had taken the limit-breaking pill and was still in a stiff stage. This also made Yu Qianqiu a little nervous, worried that Furong wouldn't be able to accept Yin Yu's appearance when she woke up. He asked Yin Yu in return, and she seemed very generous, showing that she didn't care how many women he had, but was afraid that others would dislike her because of her poor background. It could be seen that she was a little worried that Furong wouldn't accept her. Yu Qianqiu could only comfort her out of kindness. After all, now that things had come to this, he had to slowly try to make them get along, and they couldn't not see each other for the rest of their lives, right? It was the first time that Yu Qianqiu saw the night view of the purple bamboo forest. At night, the forest was filled with misty spiritual qi, which could be said to be quite dense, and all of it was emitted by the purple bamboo. This made Yu Qianqiu feel a little strange. Plants could actually emit spiritual qi, and when he asked Nongzhu, he also didn't know the answer. However, the most strange thing was that the joints of the branches of the purple bamboo were actually glowing with a faint purple light, which couldn't be seen in the daytime. Under the night sky, looking at the bamboo forest, there were dots of soft purple light everywhere. And when a gust of night wind blew, the purple light swayed, and it was very beautiful. Yu Qianqiu made a net bed and found a place where the bamboo was sparser, and pulled it up, lying on it, biting the bamboo leaves, and looking at the stars. The sky was full of stars, and with the purple light swaying around him, a gust of wind blew, and Yu Qianqiu swayed on the net bed, feeling like he was in a dream. This place was so beautiful that it was a little unreal, and he was really envious of Nongju for finding such a good place to live. If only I could live like this leisurely for the rest of my life. He couldn't help but let out a sigh, with his arm behind his head. What are you sighing about? Immortal Crocodile, who didn't mix with others, suddenly appeared beside him. Yu Qianqiu tilted his head and smiled at him. Seeing that he was stroking the bamboo next to him, he couldn't help but sit up and ask curiously, Old monster, is there such bamboo in the celestial world? Immortal Crocodile touched the bamboo joint that was emitting a soft purple light, looked around and slowly shook his head. I've never seen or heard of such a magical bamboo. Not only does it emit light, but it can also emit spiritual qi, which is really incredible. I didn't expect such a good thing to exist in the world. Even you haven't heard of it? Yu Qianqiu looked around, and his expression became serious. It should be known that Immortal Crocodile's experience was among the best in the celestial world, and he himself regarded him as a know-it-all. Who would have thought that even he didn't know about it? This was a bit unusual. Could it be a natural treasure? When are you going to leave? Immortal Crocodile suddenly asked. Yu Qianqiu came back to his senses, looked at the chatting women and sighed. Some people are destined to be happy, and some people are destined to pay. Let's do it now. With that said, he jumped off the net bed, and the two walked into the depths of the bamboo forest. In the Inn of Lust City, Yu Qianqiu left Immortal Crocodile's room, and went straight to the door of Boli's room. He pushed the door, and found that it was indeed not locked. These natives were used to staying in the tribe, and had no habit of locking their doors. He closed the door, walked to the bedside and kicked Boli, who was sleeping soundly awake. When Boli saw him, he immediately asked where he had been, as he hadn't seen him for the past few days. Yu Qianqiu smiled slightly. He realized that this fellow seemed to have gained a lot of weight after not seeing him for a few days. It seemed like he was living a good life. He didn't say much, and got Boli to find the other tribesmen. After everyone arrived, he asked them in detail about their experiences over the past few days, and there was nothing unusual. He sent them to Utopia, and let them meet their tribesmen. He sat by Boli's bed and fell silent for a while. His gaze gradually deepened, and he instantly made a decision. If Huang Tian still hadn't found any news about the purple flames, he wasn't prepared to wait any longer. He didn't have the patience to wait any longer. Chapter 786. In the underground palace under the city Lord Manor's garden, Yu Qianqiu directly burrowed into the ground. After looking around, his eyes landed on the dirt ball on the table in the center. Every time Huang Tian left this place, he would gather a dirt ball here in case Yu Qianqiu came to find him. Yu Qianqiu walked straight to the table and broke the dirt ball. He sat on the chair and waited quietly. Not long after, Huang Tian came through the wall with a bad expression. As he walked over, he asked, "Where have you been these days? I haven't seen you in the entire Yellow Sand City, and you haven't come to find me." Yu Qianqiu waited for him to sit down before asking, "It doesn't matter where I went. How's the news about the purple flames?" Huang Tian raised his hand and stopped him. He frowned and sighed. "Don't ask about the purple flames for now. The Immortal City is in a mess now. It's not good to ask about it. It's not too late to ask after things stabilize. Don't run around during this period in case something happens." Yu Qianqiu sized him up and asked curiously, "You don't look too good. Did something happen in the Immortal City?" Huang Tian sighed softly. "Immortal Lord Night Owl and 2 Netherworld generals are dead. Immortal Lord Dancing Ji is also heavily injured. Everyone in the Immortal City is in danger, afraid that the madman will appear again. Who has the mood to help me ask about the purple flames?" Yu Qianqiu's eyes widened. He could not sit still anymore. He stood up and asked in disbelief, "You mean the madman who challenged the Immortal Lord last time appeared again? He even killed Immortal Lord Night Owl and 2 Netherworld generals?" "That's right." Huang Tian shook his head and sighed. "I don't know where this person came from. Not only is he getting stronger the more he fights, his cultivation is also improving at a godly speed. This time, the 2 Immortal Lords and the 2 Netherworld generals had joined forces to capture him and interrogate him, about the way to enter and exit the heaven and earth Qianquan formation. Who knew that he, who had been injured by the two immortal lords last time, would appear this time? With the exception of immortal Lord Ji Wu, the other three were all dead. It's hard to imagine. It's really hard to imagine. What kind of cultivation method can increase one's cultivation so quickly in this world? Yu Qianqiu sucked in a breath of cold air and sat down on the ground. He knew that Bai Changchun was fierce, but he didn't expect him to be so strong that he couldn't believe it. How long has it been? He actually killed 3 immortal monarchs? Are you sure this news is true? Yu Qianqiu gulped and asked. Frowning, Huang Tian snapped. Do you think I would joke about something like that? As he spoke, he stood up and said, the fence gathering is over. I still have things to arrange. We'll continue to inquire about the purple flame after the situation has cleared up. Everyone, don't be anxious. It's better to be careful. Wait. Yu Qianqiu stopped Huang Tian, who was about to leave. He walked closer and asked, tell me the truth. What happened at the fence gathering? What did the warriors that were sent to the immortal city do? Huang Tian shook his head and said, I'm not too sure about the specifics. I only know that most of them were sent to mine spirit stones. After all, spirit stones are extremely difficult to mine, and those with weak physiques can't handle it. Some of them were directly taken away by immortal Lord Night Owl. I don't think many people know what they're doing. Yu Qianqiu frowned and said, then why did they keep some people in the fence gathering and let most of them live in the most primitive state? Aren't you quite smart? I've already made it so clear. Why can't you figure it out? Huang Tian said disdainfully, spirit stone mines are extremely difficult to mine, and they need people with strong physiques. Didn't you realize that the primitive natives' bodies are stronger than the people in the fence gathering? The natives are raised for manual labor, while the people raised in captivity are raised so that the immortal cultivators don't have to live like barbarians and eat raw meat. Everyone is locked up in the heaven and earth universe formation, so they have to find some fun, right? Otherwise they'll suffocate to death. After saying that, he pointed at Yu Qianqiu's head as if to say that he was a blockhead. Then he turned and left. Raised in captivity? Yu Qianqiu was stunned on the spot. Those 2 words made him speechless. He didn't expect the immortals here to raise humans like animals. He sighed and shook his head slightly. He knew that there was nothing he could do about it. These immortals were used to being high and mighty, so why would they care about mortals? In their eyes, mortals were no different from animals. It was good enough that they raised them and didn't kill them. As he thought about it, his thoughts returned to Bai Changchun. He realized that the old fellow really lived up to his title as the #1 expert in the world. He was so strong that he was perversely strong, and wherever he went he killed. Just as he thought about it, his eyes suddenly opened. He faintly felt that the old fellow was about to leave, and probably wouldn't come back to the East Holy Land. Think about it. The old fellow killed 3 of the 2 immortal monarchs and 2 netherworld generals in the East Holy Land. And these 4 were the ones with the highest cultivation in the East Holy Land. With the old fellow's personality, the East Holy Land probably couldn't interest him anymore. The next step would probably be, just as he thought about it, he was stunned again as he felt Lady Mu's summon. He frowned slightly, not knowing what was going on. In a flash, he charged into the mud wall and disappeared. Once he appeared on Obedient Island, Yu Qianqiu looked around, but didn't find anything strange. Lady Mu, who was not far away, had already noticed him. She quickly walked towards him and bowed, saying, Mr. Old Lord is back. The old lord she was talking about was naturally Bai Changchun. Yu Qianqiu immediately teleported back into the house, but he saw that it was empty. There was no sign of Bai Changchun at all. When he turned and walked to the door, he saw Lady Mu rushing over. He immediately shouted in a low voice, What's going on? Lady Mu immediately replied fearfully, Mister, please listen to me first. Old Lord has indeed returned just now, and he even asked me about you. I wanted to ask you to come back, but Old Lord said there was no need for that. After he walked around the island for a while, he left. Once he left, I felt that I should tell you about it immediately, so I immediately came to find you. In fact, old Lord has just left, almost right after you. With a flash, Yu Qianqiu appeared on the roof outside. He looked around at the obedient island that was still the same as before and let out a sigh. It seemed that his guess was right. The old man was really going to leave. He came back this time to take one last look at the obedient island that he had stayed in for 1,000 years. It was likely that he would never return after leaving. The human world could no longer keep such a heaven-defying character, and such a heaven-defying character should no longer stay in the human world. This was his destiny. Lady Mu, which direction did old Lord go? Yu Qianqiu suddenly shouted from the roof. He thought that Bai Changchun might have something to tell him when he came back. Lady Mu immediately stretched out her hand and pointed in the air, saying, "Old Lord went in that direction." Yu Qianqiu followed her finger and saw that it was in the direction of Chilly Wind Valley. As he expected, the old man should have gone to the netherworld through the 9th netherworld cave. Then he asked again, "You mean old Lord has just left?" Lady Mu immediately replied, "That's right. It happened almost right after you came back. He might even make it in time." Yu Qianqiu instantly disappeared from the roof, and after appearing in a remote area of Utopia, he immediately closed his eyes and sensed Bai Changchun's movements. Judging from the direction, Bai Changchun should have just entered the 9th netherworld cave. So fast! Yu Qianqiu opened his eyes in shock. He did not expect Bai Changchun to enter the 9th netherworld cave so quickly. It had only been a while since he left the obedient island. The old man's cultivation was indeed terrifyingly high. Without another word, he disappeared on the spot. In order to stop Bai Changchun, he simply teleported and appeared in front of the netherworld gate. The moment he appeared, he immediately sized up the eerie and terrifying surroundings. After all, the netherworld envoy had appeared here previously, and he did not know if there would be any danger. In the huge underground space, the netherworld fire sea was still burning fiercely, and the black miasma lingering in the sky surged. The group of skulls on the walls of the netherworld Iron Mountain were still as ferocious as ever, and the majestic netherworld gate did not move. The feeling this place gave off was still as shocking as ever, and it seemed like nothing had changed. The saw mark he had left on the netherworld gate was still there, and the missing knocker had not been replaced. It seemed like there was no danger. At this moment, someone behind him suddenly said, "Why are you here? Who is it?" Yu Qianqiu was shocked. He turned around and saw Bai Changchun, who was dressed in a green robe, looking at him in surprise. He immediately patted his chest with lingering fear and said, "Master, why didn't you make a sound? You'll scare people to death in this place." Bai Changchun looked around and asked curiously again, "Why are you here? What are you trying to get?" Yu Qianqiu patted his chest and heaved a sigh of relief. He replied, "When I just returned to Shuntian Island, I heard from Lady Mu that you had returned and left. I asked in which direction you went, and guessed that you were coming here, so I came here to wait for you." Bai Changchun nodded slightly, indicating that he understood. Then, he walked with his hands behind his back and quietly sized up the surroundings. Yu Qianqiu followed behind him and asked with a smile, "Master, I heard that you killed a celestial monarch and 2 netherworld generals in the East Holy Land, and even injured a celestial monarch. Is this true?" Bai Changchun replied with an N, and as he looked around he said indifferently, "I wanted to kill them all, but after thinking about it, I left one alive for you. Maybe you'll need such an expert to practice with in the future, so that you can prepare to explore the immortal and netherworld realms in the future." Yu Qianqiu, who was following behind him, paused. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he followed up again. He said, "Master, you think too highly of me. You actually left an celestial monarch expert for me to practice with. I guess I won't be able to use her. Her level is really too high. Don't compare me with you. I don't care if I can use her or not. Maybe there'll be a day where I can use her. It's better to be prepared now than not. Besides, there's no point in me killing her anymore. The Holy East Land needs a leader to intimidate the small fry. Otherwise, once chaos breaks out, the ones who will suffer will be those mortals," Bai Changchun said in a carefree manner. Chapter 787. Haha. Master has a benevolent and compassionate heart. It is truly a blessing for all living beings in this world to have Master presiding over it. Why don't you just stay? Yu Qianqiu chuckled and flattered. Bai Changchun was indifferent to his flattery. Expressionlessly, he stared at the mountain wall made of skeletons, which looked as if they were alive. Then he slowly said, "No one can protect the human world for generations to come. The way of heaven has its own rules. If the heavens have feelings, they will grow old. The right path of the human world is full of vicissitudes. The things that should be experienced can never be avoided. I should have left long ago." He tried to persuade him again, but to no avail. Yu Qianqiu simply shut up. He knew that since the old man had come to the underworld gate, there was no use in persuading him. He silently accompanied Bai Changchun, accompanying him to inspect the underground space that was different from the human world. In the huge space that flickered, the master and disciple slowly walked to the front of the majestic underworld gate. Even with Bai Changchun's high cultivation, standing in front of the gate gave people a feeling of insignificance. Separated by a gate, the difference between the human world and the netherworld made Bai Changchun, who had his hands behind his back, feel a little emotional. Bai Changchun stared at the portraits of men, women, old, and children painted on the door for a long time. He carefully observed them over and over again. His eyes flickered with uncertainty. In the end, he slowly closed his eyes and furrowed his brows, as if he was contemplating something. Yu Qianqiu was a little curious. He also looked at the carvings on the gate, but didn't see anything unusual. After a long time, Bai Changchun slowly opened his eyes and gazed at the gate again. He stared at the heaven-swallowing beast's head that was missing a knocker. Then, he looked back at Yu Qianqiu meaningfully and said, "This gate contains the truth of the great Tao. It's extremely profound. I'm afraid it's not something that the underworld emperor or the immortal emperor could build. I don't know how long it's been guarding here. Since it was destroyed by your hands, I'm afraid you'll have to give it a perfect ending." These words were very mysterious. Yu Qianqiu was confused and scratched his head. "Give it a perfect ending? Master, what do you mean?" "All things in the cycle of reincarnation have a beginning and an end. The end is the beginning, and the beginning is the end. This is called reincarnation and perfection," Bai Changchun explained. F***ck me. What the hell? Why was it even more mysterious than what he had said before? The corner of Yu Qianqiu's mouth twitched. He nodded with a silly smile. Actually, he didn't understand a single word. He was just pretending to understand. He didn't want to ask anymore. The answers he received were getting more and more mysterious. It was easy for the speaker, but it was hard for him to listen. However, not long after Bai Changchun said these words, the entire underground space immediately produced many chaotic echoes of different heights, but they were all repeating Bai Changchun's words. The portraits of men, women, old, and children on the underworld gate seemed to have come to life in an instant. They were reciting along with Bai Changchun, and their voices echoed in the huge underground space. The lifeless airflow in the underground space instantly became restless, whistling wildly. The flames in the netherworld flame sea suddenly rose and fiercely burned, seeming extremely mysterious and strange. Yu Qianqiu looked around dumbfoundedly. If these words didn't come from Bai Changchun's mouth, if Bai Changchun wasn't still by his side, if Bai Changchun's expression was still calm, he would have already teleported away. The netherworld flame sea that was burning fiercely gradually calmed down. When the strange scene in the underground space calmed down again, Yu Qianqiu finally let out a sigh of relief. He looked at Bai Changchun with eyes full of worship. This old fellow's cultivation was really high, so high that it was unfathomable. He even knows how to use spells to heighten the atmosphere. This is an expert. It's worth learning, it's worth learning. Suddenly his eyes popped out. His expression was like he had seen a ghost as he stared at the underworld gate. Originally, the portraits of men, women, old, and children on the gate had all kinds of strange expressions. Happiness, anger, sorrow, and happiness were all there, depicting all kinds of life. However, at this moment, the expressions of the portraits of men, women, old, and children on the gate had all turned into smiles. Each and every one of them revealed a satisfied smile, as if they had been enlightened by Buddha and had already escaped from the sea of bitterness. This. Yu Qianqiu's mouth opened so wide that his fists could be stuffed inside. He pointed at the underworld gate, bewildered, and pointed again and again, asking Bai Changchun to quickly look. However, Bai Changchun's expression was indifferent, as if he didn't care at all. Yu Qianqiu closed his mouth and quickly rubbed his eyes. He thought that he was hallucinating, but in the end, the smiling faces on the underworld gate were still there. He swallowed his saliva and ran to the front of the gate to touch it. It seemed like it was real and not an illusion. Oh my God! Yu Qianqiu stumbled back a few steps in succession. Turning his head back to look at Bai Changchun, he pointed at the netherworld gate with a backhand and said with a sheepish smile, Master, why your cultivation is really high, too high. He simply couldn't believe it. Just a few words could change the expressions of the people on the underworld gate. Moreover, it was so lifelike without a trace. This cultivation was just too terrifying. Was he still human? He was simply a god. Move aside, Bai Changchun said lightly. Yu Qianqiu gave an "oh" sound and quickly moved to the side. Bai Changchun stretched out his hand that was behind his back and pushed the underworld gate in front of him. Yu Qianqiu immediately felt a majestic aura rush out, gently but powerfully pushing the underworld gate. With a rumbling sound, a crack appeared on the majestic underworld gate, and an eerie aura immediately blew out from the crack. The airflow in the underground space instantly became incomparably chaotic, and the netherworld flame crazily danced. As the crack on the gate became wider and wider, a dense cold wind blew out from inside and swept through the underground space. The light flickered rapidly. Even with Yu Qianqiu's current cultivation, it was a little hard for him to stay where he was. He quickly held the underworld tablet next to the underworld gate. After the gate was opened to about a meter wide, Bai Changchun faced the strong wind and slowly walked out, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. Yu Qianqiu knew that Bai Changchun was about to leave the human world and head to the underworld. After a series of complicated expressions, he suddenly shouted, Master, do you have anything else to say to this disciple? As the strong wind blew, Bai Changchun turned around and stared at him with bright eyes. He indifferently smiled and said, Walk your own path. Don't let me down. A short sentence couldn't be considered an explanation. After he finished speaking, he resolutely turned around and didn't stop at all. His body turned into a ray of green light and disappeared into the black whirlpool behind the underworld gate. After he entered the underworld gate, it closed with a rumble until it was seamless. The entire underground space gradually returned to its calm state. Yu Qianqiu looked at the closed underworld gate in a daze. He seemed to be in a daze. He couldn't understand why parting was always unavoidable in life. He suddenly clenched his fist and shouted, Master, I definitely won't let you down. You will see it in the future. I will definitely let you see it. These words seemed to have been said a little too late. It seemed like he should have said it before Bai Changchun left. However, this shout seemed to have used up all of his strength. He weakly leaned against the underworld tablet and slid to the ground. There was no sadness of parting on his face, only a lonely smile. He sat there alone and shook his head with a faint smile as he recalled the past between the master and disciple. He sat there alone for a very long time. When he woke up again, his emotional side was once again restrained. He had a shrewd expression on his face as he jumped up. No one knew what he thought of, but he directly dove into the netherworld flame sea and appeared at the entrance of the netherworld cave. He stared at the cave wall and found the inscription on the wall. Damn it! The old man has gone to the netherworld realm to stir up trouble. I hope he doesn't come up with some netherworld envoy who wants to find me by name. Yu Qianqiu muttered to himself. He found the words that he had inscribed on the wall. Then, he covered his palm with a green flame and rubbed it against the wall a few times, erasing all his words. After seeing Nongzhu's inscription, he originally didn't want to care about it. Maybe one day he could see Nongzhu's excitement. However, after thinking about it, if something happened to Nongzhu, he would inevitably be implicated. Therefore, he completely destroyed Nongzhu's inscription, and Bai Changchun's. After doing all this, he looked along the winding netherworld cave, and suddenly thought of Yu Ji outside. He remembered that he had promised her that if he had the ability, he would help her leave the Demon Spectre region. Now that Bai Changchun was gone, the Demon Spectre region was completely under his control. If he let a ghost cultivator out, he could be sure that there would not be any trouble. It was time to fulfill his promise. He disappeared directly. When he appeared in the Chiliwen Valley, it immediately caused a commotion among the ghost cultivators. He hadn't announced the succession of the Demon Domain Torture Master in the Demon Domain, mainly because he didn't want to cause a commotion in the Demon Domain. Now he didn't have time to take care of the Demon Domain every day, so it was good to continue to use the old guy's prestige to deter people. Even so, everyone in the Chiliwen Valley knew that he was above tens of thousands of people in the Demon Domain, so they were very respectful. Yu Qianqiu asked if Yu Ji was there. As a result, Yu Ji and other key figures in the Chiliwen Valley were checking the entrance of the Netherworld Cave because of the change. Yu Qianqiu asked someone to find Yu Ji, and said that he had something to talk to her alone. A ghost cultivator immediately went to report. He directly entered the Ghost King's hall without any hindrance, and went straight to Yu Ji's throne and sat down. Almost at the same time when he sat down, Yu Ji had already flashed in quickly. She quickly walked to the throne and bowed, saying, "Greetings, sir." Sitting on the throne, Yu Qianqiu looked at the charming Yu Ji with a smile and asked lightly, "Yu Ji, do you remember a promise I made to you when I first met you and General Meng? Now it's time for me to fulfill this promise." Yu Ji's delicate body trembled. She looked at him and bit her lips tightly, looking very excited. It seemed that she didn't expect that this day would really come. However, when she looked around the empty Ghost King's hall, she was stunned, and her face gradually became gloomy. She slowly knelt down in front of Yu Qianqiu and said with a lonely smile, "Thank you, sir." At first, Yu Ji wanted to leave with the general, but now the general is gone. No matter how colorful the outside world is, Yu Ji doesn't want to enjoy it alone. Chapter 788. Yu Qianqiu left Ilwind Valley and returned to Lust City's inn. Previously, under his repeated inquiries, Yu Ji finally rejected his good intentions. She did not want to abandon Meng Yan's old subordinates, and decided to continue being her Ghost King. Yu Qianqiu did not expect this female ghost to be so loyal. He had underestimated her. Now he felt that this woman could be used, but it depended on whether there was a chance. At the same time, Bai Changchun's departure affected him greatly. Seeing the gap between him and his master widening, he was even more determined to work hard. Just as he said in front of the Netherworld Gate, he hoped that he would not disappoint Bai Changchun when he saw him again. After knocking on Immortal Lord Crocodile's door, Yu Qianqiu closed the door and walked straight to Immortal Lord Crocodile, who was sitting cross-legged, and said indifferently, "Come, let's go to the Immortal City." Immortal Lord Crocodile was startled. What's wrong? He did not know why this fellow, who always talked about safety, decided to take the risk. This Huang Tian is a small character in the East Holy Land. I don't know how long it will take for him to help me find information about the purple fire. I can't wait. Yu Qianqiu's gaze was resolute. Let's take the initiative and go to the Immortal City. There should be people there who know. Immortal Lord Crocodile pondered for a moment. With my current cultivation, if something happens to the Immortal City, I might not be able to protect you. Don't worry, I can protect you, Yu Qianqiu said with a chuckle. Immortal Lord Crocodile glanced at him and sneered. Protect me? Are you kidding? If that's the case, why drag me along? You can go by yourself. Yu Qianqiu said shamelessly. If you can't beat us, then run. Did you forget that we can leave the East Holy Land? Immortal Lord Crocodile was speechless. He slowly said, I advise you not to take this risk. There are many experts in the Immortal City. I can hide my identity from others, but I can't hide it from Yi Xiao and Ji Wu. With their cultivation, I'm afraid they can see through me at a glance. Al Ji Wu? Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows and sneered. I almost forgot to tell you. Yi Xiao and the two netherworld generals hiding underground have already been killed by my master. That Jiwu was also severely injured by my master. She was lucky to survive. How would she have the time to visit you? What? Immortal Crocodile stood up abruptly and exclaimed. Are you telling the truth? Cut the crap. Let's talk on the way. Yu Qianqiu threw out a few silver balls and glanced at him. Immortal Lord Crocodile closed his eyes out of habit. When the two of them reappeared, they were already on a yellow plain outside the city. This was the place where Yu Qianqiu had been cultivating his earth formula. The two of them didn't know where the immortal city was. Back then, Immortal Lord Crocodile didn't have a so-called immortal city in the Holy East Lands. Fortunately, when Yu Qianqiu was chatting with Huang Tian, he had kept an eye out and figured out where the immortal city was. It should be in the center of the Holy East Lands. After the two of them determined their direction, they quickly flew toward the center of the Holy East Lands. Along the way, under Immortal Lord Crocodile's strong request, Yu Qianqiu roughly told him about Bai Changchun's glorious feat of killing Algae, shocking Immortal Lord Crocodile. When Yu Qianqiu casually mentioned that Bai Changchun had already gone to the Netherworld realm, Immortal Lord Crocodile sighed. There was a hint of admiration in his solemn expression. He didn't think that he had underestimated Bai Changchun's strength. Based on Bai Changchun's ability to defeat two immortal lords and two netherworld generals, it was obvious that even if his cultivation was at its peak, he wouldn't be Bai Changchun's match. As they flew, Immortal Lord Crocodile also confirmed his guess. Yu Qianqiu's cultivation had indeed reached the soul formation stage. This left Immortal Lord Crocodile speechless. The master and disciple's cultivation speed was too abnormal. After flying out of the vast yellow plains, they immediately entered a primeval forest that stretched as far as the eye could see. The two of them didn't dare to be ostentatious, afraid that they would be discovered. Thus, they tried to fly close to the treetops in the valleys of the mountains. If anything happened, it would be convenient for them to hide. The mountains rose and fell. The green forest was like a wash, and the landscape was like a painting. Along the way, Immortal Lord Crocodile remained vigilant, and Yu Qianqiu also became more interested in enjoying the scenery of the forest. However, just as he was enjoying the view, Immortal Lord Crocodile suddenly pulled him into the dense forest below. As soon as they landed, Yu Qianqiu immediately held his breath and focused. He knew that Immortal Lord Crocodile wouldn't do this for no reason. He must have discovered something. Without another word, he pointed his finger and immediately burrowed into the ground with Immortal Lord Crocodile. The surface of the ground slowly returned to normal as the two of them dove into the ground. It could be said that Yu Qianqiu used the same trick again. The two of them hid under a small slope, revealing two small holes under the luxuriant weeds for the two of them to observe the movements outside. After waiting underground for a while, Yu Qianqiu didn't discover anything. He couldn't help but ask via voice transmission, "Old monster, what did you discover?" In the end, before he could finish speaking, they heard the sound of intense fighting coming from afar. Even the hole that the two of them were hiding in was shaking. Mud and sand fell, covering the two of them with a layer of soil. Such a big movement could be heard from so far away. One could only imagine that the cultivation level of the people fighting was not low. Yu Qianqiu immediately used the earth art to strengthen the soil around them, preventing them from being buried alive. The sounds of the fierce battle lasted for a long time before it died down. After waiting for a while, Yu Qianqiu asked via voice transmission, "Old monster, the fight seems to be over. Can we go out and continue on our way?" Immortal Lord Crocodile suddenly frowned and stretched out his index finger to make a silent gesture. He closed his eyes and listened. Without hesitation, Yu Qianqiu immediately stuck his head against the mud wall, narrowed one eye, and blindly looked out of the hole. He saw the branches and leaves of a few trees in front of him rustling, and a beautiful figure came out and landed directly on the ground. After stumbling and holding onto the tree trunk, she quickly looked around vigilantly. Yu Qianqiu's narrowed eyes instantly lit up. This was a graceful woman dressed in a white palace robe. Her arms were covered by long flowing cloud sleeves, and her hair was a little fluffy. There was a bright red bloodstain on her snow-white chin. Her beautiful appearance was not the slightest bit inferior to Lu Yanqing. Whether it was in terms of temperament or aura, she was even better. She seemed incomparably elegant and noble. She pushed the tree trunk away and staggered a few steps. Suddenly, her eyebrows furrowed slightly, and she looked like she was in pain. Her chest heaved up and down, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. In the blink of an eye, her eyes closed slightly, and she fell to the ground motionless. It was obvious that she had suffered serious injuries. Yu Qianqiu looked around again. When he looked back, he saw that immortal Lord Crocodile was also staring outside with a serious expression. He immediately felt happy. He thought to himself, "Old thing, why are you pretending to be so serious? I have seen you in the cannibal tribe. You are called a man on the outside." He immediately sent a voice transmission and chuckled. "Old monster, that woman outside is beautiful, right? Are you tempted? Do you want to take the opportunity, while she's unconscious, to bring her in to take a look at her?" Immortal Lord Crocodile suddenly turned around and stared at him. Just as a cold smile appeared on his face, he suddenly froze and frowned. He hurriedly sent a voice transmission. "Quick, quick, bring her in." Yu Qianqiu winked and smiled. He looked outside and used the earth spell. The woman was instantly swallowed by the wave of earth and sank into the ground. However, in the blink of an eye, more than a dozen streams of light flashed and appeared, all of them full of murderous intent. Yu Qianqiu was shocked. He immediately held his breath and did not dare to move. The leader was a burly bald man in black with a fierce look on his face. His bald head was shiny, and he had big eyes without eyebrows. He was looking around with a fierce look in his eyes. After glancing at the blood on the ground, he hooked his index finger, and a bloody leaf fell into his hand. He gently crushed it with his fingers and snorted coldly. He opened his mouth and spoke in an unusually hoarse voice. He waved his hand and said, "That B*TCH is seriously injured. She can't run far." Everyone spread out in search. Immortal Lord Crocodile immediately sent a voice transmission to Yu Qianqiu. "Quickly dive down and hide, or we won't be able to hide from them." Yu Qianqiu naturally knew without the need for him to say anything. Hiding in such a shallow and close distance would not be able to hide from even a soul formation expert, let alone an immortal from the Eastern Holy Land. Moreover, the other party had the intention to search. He immediately used the earth spell to its limit. He grabbed the unconscious woman with one hand and pulled immortal Lord Crocodile with the other. They quickly dove deep and far away. The movement of the underground soil immediately attracted the gazes of the dozen people to the small slope, where the two of them had been hiding. The bald man shouted in a hoarse voice, "Underground." The dozen people attacked almost at the same time without hesitation. All kinds of dazzling lights shot out from their hands. Bang! There was a deafening sound, as if the sky was falling and the earth was cracking. In an instant, the soil within a radius of nearly 1,000 meters flew everywhere. Countless trees and plants were instantly turned to ash. Amidst the scorched smoke, the dozen people were covered in a layer of transparent protective light shield. Their gazes were like torches as they looked down from the sky. Under their combined attack, a huge vortex-shaped pit, with a radius of 1,000 meters, appeared in the deep primitive forest. It was charred black and hundreds of meters deep. The dozen people's gazes penetrated the smoke and fog with their perception. They quickly scanned the ground, but they did not find any movement. They looked at each other, and at the bald man in black. Their reactions were considered fast. They did not expect someone to be able to escape underground so quickly. It was probably as fast as flying. It was simply unbelievable. The bald man narrowed his eyes and looked down. He said slowly in a deep and hoarse voice, "Earth manipulation art? Could the earth manipulation spell allow him to escape so quickly underground? Could it be that I'm ignorant?" Everyone shook their heads, indicating that they had not heard of it. The bald man snorted coldly. "I have never heard of that woman using the earth element art. Did someone save her?" As soon as he said this, someone immediately cupped his hands and reported, "According to what I know, the city lord of Lust City, Huang Tian, knows the earth manipulation art. Also, Lust City is not far from here. Could it be him? Old man Huang Tian? Just him? The bald man laughed coldly and said, "It's not that I look down on him, but his tricks can only be used by a 3-year-old child to play hide and seek. They can't even be mentioned in the same breath as this kind of earth elemental technique. They are not on the same level at all. Yet he wants to escape underground with a person? Humph." Chapter 789. I was speaking nonsense. That person cupped his hands, and then he frowned and said, "That's strange. According to my knowledge, Huang Tian was the only one who knew how to control Earth amongst the people who survived all those years ago. Could it be that there's someone else? No matter who he is, since he doesn't dare to fight us head-on, there's no need to be afraid of him." The bald man in black suddenly looked at them and ordered in a hoarse voice, "Gather our people and search with all our might. We must find that B*TCH before she recovers. Once she recovers, all of us will have to bear the consequences." Yes, everyone bowed and accepted the order, then quickly dispersed. At this time, Yu Qianqiu and the other two were wrapped in a bubble underground. The soil layer in front of them quickly parted, and the soil behind them closed up again. They were like fish in water, or like stray dogs fleeing in panic. Yu Qianqiu held the injured woman with one arm, his eyes closed, and the fingers of his other hand stretched forward, using the earth manipulation technique to quickly open up a path. Immortal Lord Crocodile placed both palms on Yu Qianqiu's back, pushing Yu Qianqiu forward quickly. The two of them could be said to be complementing each other. One of them did not have enough cultivation, but the magical earth manipulation technique could break through the soil and open up a path, while the other used his profound cultivation to act as an engine, pushing Yu Qianqiu at full speed. Even so, there was blood at the corner of their mouths, and their faces were pale. Although the two of them had dodged the joint attack of more than a dozen people, and did not hit them head-on, they were too close, and could not teleport like they could outside. In addition, the combined power of those people was indeed strong. A strong impact was like hitting a cow across a mountain, quickly injuring the two of them. Fortunately, Yu Qianqiu's reaction was quick, and he instantly used the earth manipulation technique to cause the ground to fluctuate, immediately dissipating a lot of the strong impact. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for them to escape. Even so, the two of them were still seriously injured. "Old monster, stop." Yu Qianqiu suddenly opened his eyes and shouted. Immortal Lord Crocodile quickly stopped. In fact, he had also discovered that along the way, large rocks had appeared all around them. Yu Qianqiu was having some difficulty opening a path. He kept making detours through the mud between the rocks. It looked like he was flying fast, but in fact, he was not running far. "Old monster, how far have we run?" Yu Qianqiu asked again. "He should be hundreds of miles away," Immortal Lord Crocodile said. "Pa!" Yu Qianqiu suddenly raised his hand and fiercely slapped the woman's plump buttocks. Immortal Crocodile immediately shouted, "Yu Qianqiu, what are you doing? Damn it! What do you think I'm doing?" Yu Qianqiu looked at the person in his arms and said unhappily, "In order to help you save the damsel in distress, I almost lost my life. Do you still have a problem with me taking advantage of her? Damn it. It feels good." As he spoke, he did not hesitate to pinch her. Immortal Lord Crocodile stared at his actions in shock, then looked at the woman in his arms. The corners of his mouth could not help but twitch. While he was in a daze, Yu Qianqiu had already thrown the woman onto the ground without any mercy. He slowly walked forward with his palm outstretched. The soil parted, and before long, a huge grayish-white stone appeared from the soil. He pressed his palm on the stone, slightly tilted his head, and closed his eyes silently. Immortal Lord Crocodile looked at his strange actions, and did not know what he was up to. Suddenly, he saw a faint smile appear on Yu Qianqiu's face. The huge rock that he was pressing on suddenly melted like snow, and a 2-meter-wide stone appeared in front of him, continuously extending inside. Yu Qianqiu put his palm out and closed his eyes as he walked inside. The smile on his face became wider and wider, as if he had discovered something. Immortal Lord Crocodile saw that he could control rocks as easily as he controlled the earth. and was immediately surprised. Without a doubt, this kid must have just comprehended it. Previously, when he encountered rocks, he had to go around in circles. Seeing that he was getting further and further away, Immortal Lord Crocodile suddenly looked around. He did not know how deep underground they were, and he could not lose him, or it would be troublesome to get out. So he hurriedly picked up the woman that Yu Qianqiu had casually thrown to the ground, and quickly followed. After following behind Yu Qianqiu for a few hundred meters, he could not help but ask, "How did you do it?" Hearing this, Yu Qianqiu stopped, opened his eyes and looked around. He smiled faintly and said, "So it works like this. I'm really a genius." His face was full of pride. When he was escaping underground, he was constantly blocked by rocks and had to go around them, which made him very angry. But at that moment, the scene of extracting metals from ores in his previous life flashed across his mind. With the mentality of giving it a try, he used the metal conjuration art on the rock, and found that there seemed to be a little reaction from the rock, but it was still indifferent. So he tried using the earth art and metal art together, and a miracle happened. He had never thought that using the earth art and metal art together could produce such a miraculous effect. But this was not what made him the happiest. The happiest thing was that he had found another way to use the 5 elemental arts. It turned out that the 5 elemental arts could be used together, which meant that the 5 elemental arts had a lot of potential. Yu Qianqiu reached out and touched the stone wall again, then turned to look at Immortal Lord Crocodile and said, "The back of this stone wall seems to be empty. Could we have found some treasure?" He suddenly thought of the strange experience of finding the Divine Spirit Stone when he first came to the Demon Ghost region. Immortal Lord Crocodile rolled his eyes and said speechlessly, "Dream on. How can it be so easy to find a treasure? Besides, no one would bury something so deep, right? Maybe it's an underground karst cave. We'll know once we open it." Yu Qianqiu nodded and pushed with his palm. The stone wall immediately melted and spread in all directions, and the stone passage quickly extended forward. Suddenly, a light appeared in the darkness a dozen meters ahead, and it was open. "Treasure light?" The two looked at each other, and Immortal Lord Crocodile was even more speechless. Could it be that this kid was right, that there was really a treasure here? Without a word, Yu Qianqiu flashed over and stood at the exit at the end of the passage. Immortal Lord Crocodile followed behind, and with just one look, he could not help but laugh. In fact, it was not Yu Qianqiu who had guessed right, but he himself who had guessed right. There was no treasure here, and the underground space in front of them was indeed an underground karst cave. The two rushed into the karst cave one after another. There was a pool in front of them, with stalactites of various shapes and sizes on both sides. There were also many stalactites hanging upside down above the cave, with crystal clear water droplets dripping into the river, making crisp and melodious tinkling sounds. The strangest thing was that there was colorful fluorescent sand everywhere in this karst cave, making the entire karst cave shine brightly. This was also why the two saw the light. Tsk tisk. Yu Qianqiu stood by the pool and exclaimed. Immortal Lord Crocodile did not know what he saw. He placed the woman and his hands on the ground, walked to the side of the pool, and immediately understood the reason for Yu Qianqiu's surprise. There were living aquatic animals in this pool, and the strange thing was that these aquatic animals' bodies could actually glow. The floating crown-like jellyfish's crown shone with light. The stealth transparent white shrimp's abdomen also shone with blue light. There were also some fish whose heads, tails, or backs glowed with colorful light. They were all very beautiful aquatic animals that lived peacefully in this undisturbed pool. The depths of the pool were pitch black, seemingly bottomless. It was probably connected to an underground river. Immortal Lord Crocodile tilted his head to look at Yu Qianqiu. Seeing him smiling foolishly with blood at the corner of his mouth, he touched his mouth and squatted by the pool to clean himself. Yu Qianqiu glanced at it, then lowered his head to look at his own reflection in the water. He squatted down to wash up as well. When he was done, He turned around and saw that immortal Lord Crocodile was taking out an immortal pill to feed to the woman. He couldn't help but walk over and tease. "Old monster. Did you fall in love with me because I'm pretty? I advise you to think carefully. This woman's cultivation level is not weak. Don't save your enemy. Do you know her?" Immortal Lord Crocodile nodded silently, indicating that he knew her. He calmed down and helped the woman refine the immortal pill. After a long time, he slowly laid the woman down. After that, he sat down cross-legged at the side and swallowed a celestial pill to heal himself. However, he noticed that Yu Qianqiu was looking at the woman up and down with malicious intent. He frowned and took out the bottle of celestial pills and handed it over. He said, "If you're injured, then stop for a moment and heal yourself first." "I don't need it." Yu Qianqiu subconsciously waved his hand. He stared at the woman lying on the ground and clicked his tongue. "This woman is really beautiful. She's stunning." Immortal Lord Crocodile paused and asked in surprise, "You don't need to heal yourself?" Yu Qianqiu was taken aback. Then he laughed and said, "Medicine is 30% poisonous. I usually resist as much as I can and try not to take medicine." Although he said that, in fact, there was another hidden reason. The Jindan in his body was very magical. Every time he was injured, it would immediately play a miraculous effect to help him recover. It was faster than taking any panacea. At this time, it seemed that he had almost recovered. Hearing this, Immortal Lord Crocodile put away the bottle in his hand and closed his eyes to heal himself. "Take your time to heal yourself. I'll go out and see what's going on outside." Yu Qianqiu threw down these words, and in a flash, he rushed out of the hole he came from and quickly rose to the surface. When he sensed the surface, he could not help but click his tongue. It turned out that they had already run thousands of meters underground. Like Du Xingxuan, he quietly poked his head out of the ground and looked around. When he realized that he was still in the forest, he quickly got out of the ground and flashed to a tree. He hid in the dense foliage and looked around. In the end, he was secretly shocked to find that there were people flying quickly in the air around him, as if searching for something. He shrunk his head back and immediately dove headfirst into the ground, disappearing without a trace. When he returned to the underground cave, Immortal Lord Crocodile opened his eyes and looked at him. "What's the situation outside?" Yu Qianqiu shook his head and stared at the woman on the ground, who was still unconscious. "There are people searching everywhere. We can't go out for now. Who is this woman? Why are they mobilizing so many people? It seems like they won't stop until they find her." "Great. I'm afraid we'll have to stay here for a while." That you're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.